Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Immortal villain. He becomes stronger by fighting for love. Chapter 81. Where are you from? Qin still didn't fight in the end. The girl was clamoring for her identity before, but now when it was Qin turn to be curious, she stopped saying anything. Guess. Guess your sister. Guess. Qin couldn't hold back and slapped her on the top of her head. Yeah. Seeing the girl's almost charming eyes, Qin couldn't help but sigh. This special habit is really puzzling. As for the girl's identity, you don't need to guess. She must be from some powerful force. If not, he wouldn't have developed such an arrogant character, and he would not have been able to develop such a savage character, and he would have been able to call for help remotely with a communication bead on his body. You must know that in the famous sword sect, as noble as Ji Yi is, she is the biological daughter of the dripping sword, and she does not even have such a thing as a communication bead. Forget it if you don't tell me. You can go. I will be kind and spare you this time. Qin waved his hand and let her go. But she turned away her head. You have done this to me. If you want to leave, just take me away. Anyway, I am yours. Qin, aren't you afraid of being ruthless and torturing you to a point where you would be worse than death in this wilderness? Expectation showed in the girl's eyes. Okay, come on, anyway, if you kill me, my father and my brother will not let you go. And as long as you don't kill me, then whatever you do it. Quote. What does lying flat mean? Perhaps this is also a kind of lying flat. The more she behaves like this, the more she confuses Qin. Scared but not scared, driven but unable to drive away. If we capture her, she is not yet a target woman and the reward is too small to be worthwhile. After thinking about it, he simply ignored her. He sat aside as he was minding his own business, and then began to take out his storage bag and count what he had gained this time in the bloody Forbidden Land. Although it was Hua Yunfang, the chosen son, who took away the first treasure this time, his gain was not small. For him, these elixirs were even more valuable. 23 bottles of Guiyuan pill, 12 bottles of foundation building pill, 46 bottles of qi gathering pill, and even 2 bottles of Ji Yuan pill taken by gold core monks. He himself does not need to use such a huge sum of money, but using these pills to give to the women he has will definitely make them feel grateful from the bottom of their hearts. You actually have so many elixirs. Which sect are you from? The girl saw it from the side and became curious about his identity. The other disciples were all wearing sect uniforms, but Qin changed his clothes early in the morning due to his habit. His identity cannot be identified by his clothing. Similarly, the girl was not wearing sect clothes, so Qin couldn't tell her identity. Why are you asking so many questions? Do you think I will tell you? Qin replied casually. The girl's eyes sparkled. She had always been sought after, and this was the first time she encountered someone treating her with such an attitude. The more Qin behaves like this, the happier she feels. But we already have this kind of relationship, do you still want to hide it from me? The girl asked. What kind of relationship? You are just my prisoner. Do you think a prisoner is qualified to talk about a relationship? You are so fierce. Quote. Qin frowned and put his hands on his hips and said, I'm really not used to you being like this. How about your unruly behavior before? The girl smiled. Do you like to see me being naughty? Qin, I like you as a ghost. After counting the loot, Qin took out the long black knife and sharpened it on the stone a few times. To be honest, this knife is pretty easy to use, but the grade of the knife is a bit low, and there is a hole missing. If it is used as a weapon for a long time, it will inevitably lose its status. At this time, the system's gentle Yu Jian also spoke at the right time. Dear host, regarding weapons, in fact, as long as they are in the hands of the host, they can be upgraded. Upgrade. How to upgrade? That is, every time the host successfully seizes love with a sword, the host will receive bonus blessings. You can choose to add them to yourself or to the weapon. I see. But even so, a low-grade spiritual weapon will only become a middle-grade spiritual weapon when upgraded. Continuing to level up like this is a waste of upgrade points. So in terms of weapons, we can only talk about it in the future. Do you use a knife? I have a knife here, which is better than yours. If you tell me which sect you are from, I can consider giving it to you. The girl saw him sharpening the knife and suddenly said something. When Qinyi heard this, he rolled his eyes and soon saw a colorful storage bag hanging on her waist. Deliver. It's all here, I wonder if you give it to me. Just start grabbing, that's it. Qinyi went over domineeringly, grabbed the girl's storage bag, and rummaged through it, and found a lot of evil things. There are actually several dolls like the ones she used before. In addition, there are more than 10 weird-looking weapons. The aura exuding from these weapons is violent and violent. It is obviously the opposite of the right way and belongs to the Demon Dao weapon. Where did you get so many Demon Dao things? It's easy to use. The righteous things are not as powerful as these weapons. The girl said matter-of-factly. The weapons of Monster Dao and Demon Dao are easy to use and very powerful, but they have negative factors and have a great impact on people. The longer it is used, the more distorted the individual's mind will become. Among these weapons, Qinyi also found a knife, a pink Yanling knife. The knife was wearing a scabbard. When he took the blade out of the scabbard, a clear dragon roar sounded on the spot. At the same time, the pink light on the blade was slowly swaying like a flame. There is no doubt that a serious person cannot use this kind of knife. If you are a girl with a pink heart, you will probably be embarrassed to hold it. But Qinyi felt that the quality of this knife was indeed much better than the black knife. If the black sword is a low-grade spiritual weapon, then this pink Yanling Dao has the rank of a high-grade spiritual weapon. The knife is good. He flicked his finger, the blade buzzed continuously, and the pink light swam crazily on the blade like a wave. Girl. Of course, this knife was stolen from my brother. Quote. You also stole your brother's knife. Who calls this knife fun? This magic knife has an intoxicating effect. Haven't you smelled its smell? No matter men or women, as long as they smell its smell, they will have the desire to fall asleep, especially if they are touched by this knife. If you hit it with a knife, the effect will be stronger, the girl said. Is there such an effect? Qinyi took a deep breath, which felt quite fragrant, but because of this deep breath, a strong sense of fatigue suddenly came to his mind, and he almost squinted his eyes. He immediately shook his head and bit the tip of his tongue to wake himself up. Good knife, I want it. After reading it several times, he was satisfied and kept it in his storage bag. Then, he threw the black knife into the river with his backhand. The girl was very surprised. The black knife was still a spiritual weapon after all, but he just threw it away. How much wealth do you have to be able to waste your family like this? In the girl's storage bag, everything Qinyi liked was taken away. Then he threw the rest to the girl and said, "Let's go." The girl didn't care. She picked up the kit and immediately followed him like a follower. Don't follow me. Qinyi took 3 steps and turned around to give her a fierce shout. The girl looked at him with a faint look. My servant was killed by you, and now you are the only one playing with me. If I don't follow you, who will I follow? Just after she finished speaking, she said with a smile, how about this, you come with me, I will let my father reuse you, and then you play with me every day, how about it? Qinyi looked at her completely unafraid expression, and with a cruel heart, he dragged her over again and pressed her against the stone. Just play and you'll know how to play. Qinyi is going back to Mingjian sect now, and of course he can't take her with him along the way. Not to mention that she still doesn't know her identity. As long as he takes her on the road, she can probably guess where his sect comes from based on the direction. Therefore, when dealing with this kind of unruly girl, simply give her a lesson she will never forget. So, Qinyi took out Yuqian Wan from the storage bag, poured 1 pill and swallowed it as soon as he raised his head. With the blessing of Go Senmaru, he communicated with the girl no less than 10 times until the girl fell into coma. After that, while the girl was still awake, he lit a stick of incense on her finger. She would be awakened by the burn-in at most 3 minutes, and he took advantage of these 3 minutes to rush away alone. About 3 days later, Qinyi found the direction of the famous sword sect after asking around. At the evening of the 3rd day, he finally returned to the foot of the mountain of the Mingjian sect. On his first day back, he returned to Kuiju Peak and reported the situation to Ji Yu Yanshan. Ji Yu Yanshan and his daughter were very happy about his return. Especially Ji Yu Yi. Qinyi went to the bloody forbidden land without telling her before, but how could he keep this matter secret for too long? In the past 2 days, people who left the sect came back one after another. Some people got opportunities and some stayed in the bloody Forbidden Land forever. It is said that this time, a red craze broke out in the bloody Forbidden Land, swallowing up a large number of lives. Ji Yu Yanshan and his daughter were also afraid that Qinyi would die in the bloody Forbidden Land. Among those who came back, their father and daughter also asked a certain elder. The elder said that Hua Yunfeng had met Qinyi on the road, but Hua Yunfeng did not take Qinyi away before danger came, so it was estimated that Qinyi was in danger. That day, Ji Yu Yi, who had just heard the news, immediately hated Hua Yunfeng in her heart and ran to have a big fight with him. To this day, Ji Yu Yi saw Qinyi come back alive with her own eyes. She smiled and started crying. Ji Yu Yanshan looked at the two young men, smiled and asked Qinyi to find him in the study later, and then left. After leaving the two of them alone, Ji Yu Yi boldly hugged him and cried out her thoughts and worries over the past few days. Qinyi comforted him. How could something happen to me? No matter who gets into trouble, it's impossible for me to get into trouble. Junior sister, you don't have to worry so much in the future. With that said, he took out some elixirs and jewelry from his storage bag and gave them to her. The elixirs were picked up, and the jewelry was plundered from the treasure troves of delinquent girls. A simple and innocent girl like Ji Yu Yi is of course easy to coax. Just a few words made her burst into laughter. Your body should be fine, right? During the hug, Qinyi suddenly came to her ear and asked her gently. Ji Yu Yi said coquettishly in his arms, 7 days have passed long ago. Qinyi, then come to my room tonight. Ji Yu Yi bit her lip. Although she was a little afraid of being scolded by her father, she mustered up the courage and said, yes, and agreed. After comforting Ji Yu Yi, Qinyi went to the study. Ji Yu Yanshan had been waiting for him for a long time. When he saw him coming in, he asked him to sit next to him and poured him a cup of tea. Did you gain anything from going to the bloody Forbidden Land this time? Ji Yu Yanshan asked. Qinyi, yes, but not much. The bloody Forbidden Land is indeed dangerous, and I don't dare to go deep. Ji Yu Yanshan nodded. He could tell Qinyi's level of cultivation at a glance. In fact, in the bloody Forbidden Land, the biggest opportunity is to improve your cultivation. Since Qinyi has not improved in terms of cultivation, the so-called gains may be some external things. Therefore, Ji Yu Yanshan did not ask further questions. I heard that this time, you met Hua Yunfeng in the bloody Forbidden Land. Yes. Did he really not allow you to board the ship before the danger came? Ji Yu Yanshan's face looked a bit stern. Are you trying to vent your anger on his behalf? Yes. It makes no sense. This is how Ji Yu Yan taught his disciples. Okay, you come with me now. I'm going to ask Ji Yu Yan and ask him to explain clearly whether what Hua Yunfeng did was taught by him personally. In fact, when he heard the bad news about Qinyi before, he was holding back his anger. Now that Qinyi has personally acknowledged it, Ji Yu Yanshan's emotions can no longer be suppressed. If he hadn't come back at the right time, the position of the leader of the sword sect would have been his, and this matter was a thorn in his heart. Now, the disciple of the person who robbed him of his sect leader's position actually dared to bully his disciple. If you take these things individually, you can just endure them. It has been so many years anyway. But the key point is that he has endured and given in all these years, but the result in exchange is that even his direct disciples have to be bullied by that person's disciples. The red tide, what a dangerous thing it is. Under those circumstances, Hua Yunfeng could actually do such a thing. Master, there is no need to go. Looking at the emotional Ji Yu Yanshan, Qinyi suddenly felt moved. To be honest, this matter is nothing to him, but if you look at it from an objective point of view, the red frenzy is extremely terrifying. If he didn't have the ultimate detection technique, how could he escape and ascend to heaven within 5 minutes? Hua Yunfeng left him where he was, which was tantamount to wanting him to die inside. It's no wonder Ji Yu Yanshan's reaction was so big. On the one hand, Ji Yu Yanshan did it for him, on the other hand, it was also for his own dignity and face. You, Ji Yu Yan, snatched my position back then, and I had nothing to say, but now I have finally accepted a talented disciple, and your disciple Hua Yunfeng actually refused to save him. Don't you want justice? How can justice be obtained with just a few words? If you want justice, you have to use your own hands and strength to get it. Now if we go over to make a fuss, the head coach Ji Yuyan will definitely give him face, and then at most he will scold Hua Yunfeng. But what's the use of a mere rebuke? To be honest, Master, this disciple has recently felt the need to make a breakthrough. I believe that within a month at most, he will be able to enter the Gold Core realm. Once the disciple reaches the Gold Core realm, then in the upcoming AO2 when it comes to swordsmanship, the disciple will definitely use his own strength to get the justice he deserves from the ring. Ji Yu Yanshan took a deep look at his disciple, remained silent for a while, and said with approval, "What a good boy, he has a good ambition." In the Gold Core realm world, Qinyi can get Gold Core in minutes as long as he tells the system to claim it. The reason why I hid it without claiming it was to come back to Kueju Peak and give my father-in-law a sense of participation. This makes my father-in-law feel that he has contributed a lot to entering the Gold Core period. Ever since Qinyi told Ji Yu Yanshan that he vaguely felt an opportunity for a breakthrough, something happened that he regretted. He was captured by Ji Yu Yanshan and put into a solitary room. He was not allowed to have contact with the outside world, nor was anyone from the outside world allowed to have contact with him, including Ji Yu Yi. This made Qinyi, who had taken Yu Qianwan for less than 3 days, quite choked. But he couldn't refuse Ji Yu Yanshan's move, who told Ji Yu Yanshan that this was for his own good. During the period when Ji Yu Yanshan asked him to retreat, he not only provided a large number of elixirs every day, but also personally taught and solved his doubts. In fact, the most important breakthrough for a cultivator in his realm is the breakthrough in his state of mind. Therefore, he told Qinyi a lot about the state of mind that led him to break through the Gold Core stage. Some are very obscure and some are very straightforward. But no matter what he said, Qinyi didn't listen to a word. After staying in seclusion for 5 days, Qinyi couldn't stand it anymore. On the afternoon of the 5th day, while Ji Yu Yanshan was not around, he quietly said, "Get it, to the system." Congratulations to the host, the rewards are distributed successfully. After he officially chose to receive the reward of Hengdao Duo Xiao Qingyu, suddenly golden light flashed all over his body. The golden aura, like a dragon's roar, flashed past his head. The majestic breath suddenly swirled back and forth in the retreat room. There was a lot of noise. Qinyi, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, looked at himself in seclusion and could clearly see that a large amount of spiritual energy essence had condensed into a bright bead the size of a dragon's eye in his dantian. This is Gold Core. Gold Core achievement means that he has completely broken away from the category of mortals. In the eyes of most mortals, Gold Core monks can already be called immortals. The movement in the retreat room quickly attracted Ji Yu Yanshan's attention, and he hurried over. When he saw Qinyi again, Qinyi's spiritual energy was flowing, restrained but not outward, and the golden light lingered around his abdomen, scattered. Ji Yu Yanshan was stunned for a moment, then looked up to the sky and laughed. He was so happy that he shouted 3 times in a row. Qinyi thought to himself, "Father's love is like a mountain. You let me retreat every day. Now, I have broken through the Gold Core stage. You should let me go out for a while." But what he didn't expect again was that Ji Yu Yanshan said directly, "Very good, my teacher really did not misjudge you. Although your talent is not as good as Huayanfang at the starting point, your potential is definitely far away from Huayanfang. On top of the peak. Before, when you broke through the foundation establishment stage, because there were so many people who knew about it, you couldn't hide it even if you wanted to. In less than a day, almost the entire famous sword sect knew about it. But now, you have reached the Gold Core realm. Except for the master, no one knows yet. For the next time, you should stay here to stabilize your realm and don't go anywhere. There is still more than a month left for AO2's sword debate. When the day comes for AO2's sword debate, you can do it again. Get out. Quote. Qinyi was complaining in his heart. He would have to go into seclusion if he didn't break through, and he would have to go into seclusion after he did. Master, can't it be enough if the disciple doesn't leave Kueju Peak? He wanted to be free at least. Ji Yu Yanshan said, "Do you think your junior brothers don't know? In the Gold Core period, even if you don't release your breath, they will vaguely feel that it cannot be hidden. Once they know, then they will be separated from other people. It's not far away if people know it. People with high realms can hide their cultivation from people with low realms." Although this statement is correct, there is no absolute in everything. For example, a rich person can pretend to be poor. When he pretends to be poor, it is like a master hiding his cultivation level so that outsiders cannot detect it. But a rich man is a rich man after all. There will always be times when he inadvertently shows some open-mindedness and generosity that are impossible for poor people, or he shows a business acumen that ordinary people cannot match. Once these things are exposed, it will not be difficult for people to guess their identities. In the same way, the demeanor and aura of people with high cultivation levels are completely different from those of ordinary people. Unless you are careful in real time, otherwise, if you leak a little bit of gold core aura, people with lower levels will feel it immediately. After all, you stand out from the rest of the chickens. Once you stand up and look up, those chickens are not blind, so how can they not see the difference in you? Aotu's sword discussion is no small matter. It is related to your future, so you have to be cautious. Qinyi smiled and said, Master, there's no need to be so cautious, right? When Aotu discusses swords, isn't he just discussing a sword? He felt that as long as he had absolute strength and fought all the way, wouldn't it be over? But Ji Yu Yanshan smiled, isn't it just a matter of swords? If you really think so, then you will never be able to win the last round. After speaking, he pointed out solemnly, when Aotu discusses swords, he discusses not only the sword, but also the heart and the future. This is related to what kind of status you can achieve in the famous sword sect in the future. If you let people know now if your level is too low, there will still be more than a month between now and the first round of sword competition, and those who are interested can definitely make some plans against you, and even make it impossible for you to get into the finals. Is it so dark? Who do you think is the most tyrannical among the younger generation? Isn't it Hua Yunfang? Ji Yu Yanshan smiled slightly, it's not just him. If a sect has only one strong person in a generation, then the sect is not far from destruction. Hua Yunfang is very strong, but under him, there are at least 4 or 5 people from the famous sword sect, all of whom are strong in the gold core realm. There are 4 or 5 people in the gold core realm world. This is the first time Qinyi has heard of this. Among the younger generation, there are actually 4 or 5 people in the gold core realm world. Ji Yu Yanshan. Of course, we recruit disciples every year, and we accumulate them year by year, which is incredible. And there are also many people who started before Huayanfang, but others are not so outstanding compared to Huayanfang. That's all. This meaning is probably equivalent to the meaning of being a repeater. No matter how good a repeater is, it is easy for people to ignore him. Who makes him a repeater? Therefore, if a repeater is good, he or she will not be considered to be really good. Others think that you have learned it several times and it is normal to be good at it. On the other hand, it is abnormal if you are not good at it. If your realm is known now, and when you take the stage for the first time, a veteran gold core disciple will be assigned as your opponent, what will you do? Qinyi is not afraid, but he also feels that if this is the case, it will be somewhat troublesome. Although you will expose your strength when the time comes, it is better to be exposed then than to be exposed now. It will save you a lot of trouble, and it will also disrupt the plans that some people made from the beginning. Master, who are the people you are referring to? Don't ask too much about this. In short, this world of cultivation is not as simple as you young people think. Qinyi could not refuse the decision to continue seclusion and could only passively accept it. Master, I have a request. This retreat is quite boring. Can I ask my junior sister to come over and exchange cultivation experiences with me? That's fine. You have been promoted to the gold core realm. If you can explain it to her, it will be of great benefit to her. Ji Yu Yanshan sees it from the perspective of a teacher. It is actually better for young people to communicate with each other than to pass it on to someone across generations. After he finished explaining to Qinyi, less than half an hour later, Ji Yu Yi finally came jumping up and down. Qinyi, here I come. Ji Yu Yi came to him happily holding a fruit basket. Qinyi had been holding back his essence for several days, and was so excited when he saw Ji Yu Yi. When Ji Yu Yi walked to the door of his retreat room, he opened the door and pulled her into his arms. He held the bow on the long skirt in his hand and pulled it with a familiar touch. The smooth long skirt fell down immediately. Ah! My dad, will come, no matter, wait until he comes. The white jade-like little lamb was dragged into the nest as if it was bitten by a tiger. With the company of my junior sister, the days of retreat are finally not so lonely. At other times, Qin also systematically evolved all the skills that he would use in the future, turning them into skills imprints and keeping them in his dantian. There are more than 100 heroes in the king, which means there are more than 100 sets of skills. In the process of evolving into skill marks, he also discovered that some skills could not be turned into reality. The system emphasizes that any technique must comply with the logic of heaven before it can be born naturally. The boxing skills, sword skills, and freezing skills he had learned before were all within the 5 elements, space, and time attributes. Therefore, these are in line with the principles of heaven. Like Dian Wei's murderous cumulative attack, Boss Cao's ultimate blood-sucking move, or even any blood-sucking skills, these are inconsistent with the principles of heaven, so the synthesis of skills fails. But despite this, after half a month, there were more than 70 or 80 marks in his dantian. In short, the things he is more familiar with have been turned into marks, and some that are not familiar to him will be turned into marks later when he remembers them, and he is not in a hurry. The small days were lived so leisurely and indulgently. Fortunately, the time for Aotu's sword discussion is very close. Otherwise, if we stay in seclusion for a few more months, the little junior sister might have a big belly. Qin often had close contact with his junior sister in the retreat room without shame. The first few times, he was not discovered by Ji Yu Yanshan. But how can your shoes not get wet when you often walk along the river? He bumped into him once later. Although Ji Yu Yanshan didn't go in through the door of the retreat room, he coughed twice, which frightened the 2 people in the room and quickly cleaned up. After that, Ji Yu Yanshan caught Qin and lectured him. But things have developed to this point, and he had previously said that he would marry Ji Yu to Qin, so he didn't blame Qin too much. Just tell him not to indulge in that aspect. Men should put their career first. The most important thing is that Yi is still young. How can it be inappropriate if you make her scream all day long? Qin was embarrassed by what he said, so he had to agree again and again. But he agreed, and the next day when he saw junior sister Yi's pretty appearance becoming more and more charming, he couldn't help but continue to have love. As for Ji Yu Yanshan, all I can say is that since the first time he bumped into her, when he went to the retreat room, he would first go to his daughter's courtyard to see if her daughter was there. If she was not there, there would be no doubt that he would run to Qin again. Intimate. He has also been here, how can he not know the taste of young people? Therefore, even if he is a biological father, he should still be avoided and some free space should be left for young people to get along with each other. With him being so reasonable, Qin life became happier. More than a month passed in a flash. One night, Ji Yu Yanshan told Qin that he was ready to go to war. Master, when? Tomorrow. Tomorrow, so soon. It was also Qin who had been in seclusion and did not go out. If he went out, he would definitely be able to see that Aotu Peak had actually started marking out the venue 7 days ago. It's not too soon. You've been in seclusion and haven't seen it. This year's Aotu sword debate is very important to the entire sect. The rewards for the top 3 are also the highest ever. In Aotu swordsmanship, there are a total of 6 places, total sword head and divided sword head. If you can get one of these 6 places, you will definitely get the generous rewards promised by the sect. What rewards will you get if you get the chief sword this time? Qin asked. The shocking dragon sword is the treasure of the famous sword sect. Whoever gets the position of the chief sword leader will be the successor of the shocking dragon sword. Qin brows jumped when he heard this. The treasure of Junzong is actually used as a reward. The shocking dragon sword, he had heard from Ji Yu Yanshan early in the morning. This sword is the foundation of the famous sword sect, the sword of the sect, a genuine treasure sword. It seems that the leader is very selfish. Qin said. Ji Yu Yanshan sneered. It's more than serious. Everyone can see it, but he doesn't hide it at all, but on the surface, it is true. Among the entire younger generation, there is no second person who can compare with Hua Yunfeng. Quote, generally speaking, it is impossible to use the Jinglong sword as a sect-suppressing treasure as a reward for being the best swordsman. Unless, the boss believes that a certain person can win the championship, so he does this. If Hua Yunfang wins the title of chief swordsman of this term again, he will marry Qingshuang girl soon. By then, he will be the next generation leader of the famous sword sect. It can be heard that Ji Yuyanshan also felt helpless under his sneer. But more often than not, he also laughed at the headmaster for doing something that was too embarrassing. You passed it on as you said, but you insisted on using the Jinglong sword as a reward, and insisted on following this process, so that Hua Yunfang could show off his strength in the sword debate. This is like a shopping mall promotion in later generations, where high-end sports cars are used as draws. The reward was originally reserved for our own people, and others could only look at it. Those who didn't know it were full of longing, and those who knew the details only saw pure disgust. The rewards for each major branch sword head are not low. 5 bottles of gold core period treasure medicine, Guyuan pill. If you can get the branch sword head, with the guarantee of 5 bottles of Guyuan pill, within the next 3 years, it shouldn't be a big problem for you to break through the middle stage of gold core. Guyuan Dan. Although Guyuan Dan is very precious, Qinyi currently has 2 bottles in his storage bag. To be honest, others may think Guyuan Dan is very valuable, but in his eyes, it is no different from 5 bottles of snacks. In comparison, it was the Jinglong sword with the main sword that made him more excited. After all, the system said that the upgrade points he earned from fighting for love can also be used on weapons. If the Jinglong sword belongs to him, he can use points to upgrade the Jinglong sword a few levels, upgrading it from a treasure to a Dao weapon. It would be wonderful to think about it. Master, I don't want the separate sword heads. I'll just take the total sword head if it's difficult, Qin Yi said. Ji Yuyanshan smiled. Of course he thought Qin Yi was joking, and said, "It's good to have this ambition, but in terms of strength, your background is not as deep as Hua Yunfang. It would be great to get the sword head. Moreover, when you participate in the first battle tomorrow, you have to report that Xuanji's sword technique won." Why, Qin Yi is actually very strong in any swordsmanship, but in the eyes of those familiar with him, his strongest one is the Tianji swordsmanship. Ji Yuyanshan. It is to let others not know your true strength. If you report Tianji sword technique from the beginning, someone will definitely target you later. Moreover, among the younger generation of masters, there are many who practice Tianji sword technique. There are quite a few people there, and if you play in Tianji sword art, it is easy to run into them. In comparison, Xuanji sword art is relatively relaxed. If he repays Xuanji's sword skills, wouldn't it be possible to run into Xiao Qingyu? According to Ji Yuyanshan, among the younger generation of the famous sword sect, most of those who practice Xuanji swordsmanship are women. And the strength is also slightly weaker in comparison. As a rising star, Qin Yi chose Xuanji swordsmanship as the safest choice. But Qin Yi felt that he couldn't do it if he had to compete with a group of women for the sword's head. Especially Xiao Qingyu and Ji Yuyi, who majored in Xuanji swordsmanship. Once they really encountered them, they couldn't bear to defeat them, and they couldn't have the best of both worlds if they didn't defeat them. Why bother? Since the Xuanji sword technique was not good, he decided to just retaliate for the heaven-destroying sword technique. The heaven-destroying sword technique belongs to the Golden Vein, and it follows a broad path, pursuing an unstoppable goal and moving forward indomitably. Among the younger generation of the famous sword sect, the person most famous for his sky-cutting swordsmanship is Hua Yunfang. Ranked second was Ji Yanbin from Nubaifeng. When this person last competed in the top sword debate, his level was at the pinnacle of foundation building, and he was about to take the gold core step. In the past few years, he has rarely appeared, so Ji Yuyanshan concluded that he must have entered the gold core realm world. Ranking third was Dao Qianqi from Longzong Peak. His talent is also very good, and now, I am afraid he also has the gold core realm world. Disciples like them are the core disciples of the famous sword sect and the pillars of the future. It is actually normal to have 4 or 5 gold core disciples. In those large sects, the younger generation of gold core disciples are at least a dozen, 20, or even 30. That's called having a solid foundation. Back then, Hua Yunfang, Ji Yanbin, and Dao Qianqi were known as the 3 masters of the golden sword, among the younger generation of the famous sword sect. The 3 of them are all excellent representatives of the heaven-destroying sword technique. Although Hua Yunfang is the strongest, the 2 of them are still very dazzling. At first, the 3 of them were in a competitive relationship, but later on, heroes cherished each other, and the three of them became good friends. Coupled with Shangguan Qing, the four of them often discuss martial arts and cultivation together. Everyone knows that Hua Yunfang's heaven-destroying sword technique is very powerful, but in fact Hua Yunfang's spear technique is even more powerful. After all, it is his destined weapon. But when Ao2 talks about swords, he talks about swords, not guns. Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi, under the guidance of Hua Yunfang, have gradually deepened their understanding of the Tian Zhuan sword technique in the past few years. Ji Yu Yanshan guessed that their swordsmanship might be far superior to that of some elders. Precisely because heaven-destroying sword technique is so difficult, this is the one that is least recommended. In addition, the Immortal sword technique and the Infinite sword technique also have several, repeater, disciples dominating the field, and they are also very difficult. In comparison, the scene of Xuanji's swordsmanship was relatively easy. Regarding Ji Yu Yanshan's arrangement, Qinyi did not reject it on the spot. He just thought that he would make temporary arrangements tomorrow if it was too big for him. Early the next day, at dawn, people in the Mingjian sect were noisy. Across different hills, you can hear vague human voices. Qinyi, get up quickly, we are going to Ao2 Peak. Ji Yu Yi, who ran from the backyard, dove into the retreat room where Qinyi was, urging him to go to Ao2 Peak to hand in the sword seal. Yi, you came to see me so early today. Qinyi, who was still half asleep at this time, reached out and hugged Ji Yu Yi's soft body to his side. Habitually untying the bow on her skirt, Ji Yu Yi's cheeks turned red, and she quickly grabbed his hand and said shyly, "No, I have to submit my sword invitation today, and the sword discussion will begin in an hour." "It's an hour, it's still very early." With that said, he directly skinned Ji Yu Yi into an exquisite jade lamb. Ji Yu Yi refused but still welcomed her. After more than a month, she had almost gotten used to it. He covered his mouth and said hummingly. Almost an hour later, the morning exercise ended, and the two of them walked down the mountain in a hurry and rushed to Ao2 Peak. When the two reached the top of the mountain, the place was already crowded. There are 9 major peaks in the Mingjian sect, and each peak has a camp. The two found the location of the 7th peak, Kuiju Peak. Everyone was given a futon, so they found a place and sat on the ground. In front of each camp, there is also a box. Outside the box, there are many jade tokens. The jade plaque was carved into the shape of a sword, about the size of a palm. Ji Yu Yi pulled him to the box. "Hurry up, now we are probably the only ones who have not submitted the sword invitation. Just take this and carve the sword field you want to participate in and your name on it." Ji Yu Yi said while demonstrating. She took a jade tablet and used her fingers to use her spiritual power to carve the words, "Xuanji sword technique, Ji Yu Yi" on it. After carving it, she threw it into the box. Qinyi followed her example and took a jade tablet. After thinking about it, he quickly wrote the words, "Sword technique of cutting the sky, Qinyi" on the jade tablet according to his decision last night. After Ji Yu Yi curiously turned her head to take a look, she was immediately surprised and hurriedly patted him a few times. "Are you stupid? Why did you write, the sword technique of cutting the sky? I just repaid the heaven-destroying sword technique. Don't you want to repay Xuanji's sword skills? If I repay Xuanji's sword skills, what will happen if I run into you?" Father said, "If I meet you, I will just admit defeat. Anyway, with my level, it is impossible to get the sword head." These are Ji Yu Yanshan's original words. Originally, given Ji Yu Yi's level of cultivation and swordsmanship, it was indeed impossible to get the sword head. The reason why she participated was just to experience it. Then I can't bear to do it. In fact, one of the main reasons why he chose the sky-destroying sword technique was because Qinyi heard that Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi were Hua Yunfang's close buddies. Since he has decided to defeat Hua Yunfang, the best way to start is to crush his best friend and give him a negative attitude first. And this choice can be used to coax the little girl at this time. When Ji Yu Yi heard what he said, she was extremely moved. "You are stupid, even if you feel sorry for me, but my father said that the sky-destroying sword technique was very difficult. There were 2 people, Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi. What a powerful guy. What would you do if you met them? If you encounter them, crush them." Qinyi answered simply and threw the jade token into the box. Once the jade token enters the box, it means that the choice cannot be changed. Ji Yu Yi was anxious, but you have never practiced the heaven-destroying sword technique. Qin Yi didn't explain much. He just took her to the back and found a place to sit down. Just open your eyes wide and watch carefully. I will definitely give you a big surprise. Surprise. Ji Yu Yi hesitated to speak, feeling worried and nervous. After a while, the box where the sword stickers were placed was taken away. After that, 5 venues for sword competitions were also planned. These 5 venues are not simply drawn with 5 circles, but defensive formations are set up on the outside. During the sword competition, the sword energy can fly out of the venue and hurt people outside. Before the official sword showdown, the emotions of all the personnel were heightened to the extreme. It seems that everyone thinks that this time they can stand out in the AO2 sword discussion conference and become famous in one battle. On the Kweju Peak side, even Huang Tianrong was high-spirited and had a strong fighting spirit. However, under his high spirits, his eyes were looking into the distance from the beginning. At the same time, many disciples here at Kweju Peak are also talking about a hot topic: why hasn't Sha Haotai shown up yet? Qin Yi came an hour later than these people, and these people didn't pay attention at all. But Sha Haotai is different. He is a genius as famous as Hua Yunfang. In the last term, Sha Haotai and Hua Yunfang had a draw, and both of them felt dissatisfied. This time, the strength of both of them has improved. In fact, the biggest highlight is the 2 heroes competing for hegemony. But the strange thing is that Sha Haotai has not appeared until this moment. The peak master of the second peak, Willow Leaf Peak, was also extremely anxious and told many disciples to go look for him. However, the disciples who went out to search for a circle shook their heads when they came back. What are you talking about? Qin Yi suddenly pulled Tang Niu behind. Tang Niu, senior brother, we are talking about Sha Haotai. I don't know what Sha Haotai is doing. The sword posts are all put away now, and he has never appeared. Also, including Huang Tianrong's cousin Song Shanming, he neither Sha Haotai nor Sha Haotai came. Qin Yi smiled heartily. It was strange that they could come. Counting the time, it has been more than 2 months since they died, and the traces of their bodies have almost disappeared. Tang Niu added. Senior brother Hua was talking over there just now, saying that if Sha Haotai doesn't participate in this session, it will be meaningless. Qin Yi laughed again. Before the sword debate began, this man started to pretend. Tang Niu, to be honest, the biggest highlight of this session is the decisive battle between senior brother Hua and Sha Haotai. It's a pity. I don't know why. Even the peak master of Luya Peak can't be found. Just after saying this, Tang Niu realized that it was not good to say this in front of Qin Yi, so he smiled and said, of course, we know that the senior brother is also very strong, but... Qin Yi didn't want to hear his lies and interrupted directly, are we still waiting for him now? I guess we won't have to wait. The AO2 sword debate is a grand event held every 5 years by the famous sword sect. It will not be delayed due to any personal issues. By the end of Chenxi, it will start on time. At the end of Chen time, that is, 9 o'clock in the morning. Judging from the sky, it will be almost 3 o'clock in the morning. After speaking, Qin Yi glanced around the venue. He quickly discovered the location of Huayan Peak in the crowd. It was in the camp of Shui Fenggaling, the first peak, and Ji Yu Qingshuang was also beside him. Today, Ji Yu Qingshuang wore a silver veil on her face, revealing only a pair of peach blossom eyes. She added 3 spirit partitioning secrets to her beauty. In fact, in terms of appearance, Ji Yu Qingshuang and Ji Yu Yi are somewhat related by blood, and they are 50 or 60% similar. It's just that if Ji Yu Yi was a young girl, then Ji Yu Qingshuang is now slim and has a half-baked young lady style. It's really difficult to win over her. Different from other women, this woman is the daughter of the head of the family on the one hand, and Ji Yu Yi's cousin on the other. Coupled with the old grudge between Ji Yu Yanshan and the head of the family, it is difficult for the 2 families to communicate normally. Ji Yu Yi usually didn't have much contact with Ji Yu Qingshuang. If Qin Yi wanted to get close to her, it would be even more difficult. Qin Yi, look, the 2 people standing next to Hua Yunfang now are Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi. Ji Yu Yi suddenly pointed at 2 people to him. Qin Yi looked in the direction and saw a few of them talking and laughing, including Shangguan Cheng. Fortunately, Brother Hua did not participate in this year's AO2 sword competition. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the two of us to win the sword competition. A man with a square face was talking and laughing. He was Ji Yanbin. Another tall, rather thin man was Dao Qianqi, who was also smiling. It's for sure that Brother Hua won't participate. After all, he was the chief swordsman of the previous session. The division swordsman of this session, only the two of us are competing for supremacy. Brother Ji, be careful, I won't let you off the hook this time. Friends are friends. When it came to winning or losing, Ji Yanbin sneered, Brother Dao, you'd better be careful. I won't let you down this time either. Hua Yunfeng smiled and said, it's a pity that you two are majoring in the heaven-destroying sword technique. In fact, you are both very strong. Apart from me, I'm afraid no one can beat the heaven-destroying sword technique. You guys, if you meet today, it will be quite exciting. I'm looking forward to it now. Ji Yanbin, Brother Hua, you seem to be taking pleasure in others' misfortune. Dao Qianqi, yes, if you take the chief sword head again this time, you will have to treat us well for 7 days. Hua Yunfeng said boldly, it doesn't matter, just 7 days. After saying this, Sheng Wanqing glanced at Qin Yi vaguely. By chance, their eyes met. Sheng Wanqing's eyes looked like he wanted to kill someone. There is no doubt that he must have known about Xiao Qingyu's close relationship with Qin Yi in the bloody Forbidden Land. During this period of time, Qin Yi has been locked in a retreat room and has not contacted Xiao Qingyu. He does not know Xiao Qingyu's current situation. But looking at Sheng Wanqing's eyes, there was clearly a bit of hatred in them. This can probably indicate two possibilities: either Xiao Qingyu has already had a showdown with him, or he is still in the doubt stage. But whether it was the former or the latter, it was enough to make him unable to tolerate Qin Yi. Sheng Wanqing suddenly pulled Dao Qianqi and said, Brother Dao, I'm entrusting you with this matter. Is it okay? Dao Qianqi followed his gaze, glanced in the direction of Kuiju Peak, and chuckled. Don't worry, I have already made an agreement with junior brother Zheng Lu. As long as he meets that boy Qin Yi at the Xuanji sword field, you will definitely not be polite. Zheng Lu, one of the outstanding figures among the younger generation of the famous sword sect, majored in Xuanji swordsmanship and almost got the ranking of the first swordsman in the last class. He has extremely high attainments in swordsmanship. Ever since Sheng Wanqing knew that Qin Yi and Xiao Qingyu had been in contact in the blood Forbidden Land, and even before the red craze came, Xiao Qingyu had begged Hua Yunfeng for Qin Yi. These 2 points made him feel very uncomfortable. A week ago, he asked Dao Qianqi to tell Zheng Lu not to be polite to Qin Yi if he met him on the sword field. Dao Qianqi had a good relationship with Zheng Lu, and they agreed with each other just by saying hello. Hua Yunfeng also knew about this and reminded him at this time, don't go too far. Although Qin Yi is a little arrogant, just break his hands and feet and let him suffer a little. Don't kill anyone. AO2's discussion of swords, although it was a discussion of swords, had killed people before. After all, swords have no eyes. In a real competition of strength, how can it be so easy to grasp the right balance? Therefore, in the sword discussing conference, even if you accidentally kill your opponent, it is still within the rules. But under normal circumstances, no one would choose to do this. After all, everyone is from the same sect, and it's just a sword competition. Sometimes the level of strength can be compared with one move, and that's it. But if you are really jealous, then let's talk about it differently. No matter what, Sheng Wanqing will not spare Qin Yi this time. He didn't specifically ask what sword field Qin Yi would sign up for, but judging from normal guesses, Qin Yi would most likely sign up for the Xuanji sword technique sword field if he worshipped under the Dishui sword sect. And in comparison, the competitiveness of the Xuanji sword art sword field is much smaller. Under the normal choice, it must be Xuanji sword art. Although some people have said that Qin Yi's understanding of Tianji sword technique is quite amazing, but it would be better if Qin Yi reported Tianji sword technique. Because Sheng Wanqing himself is one of the strongest competitors in Tianji swordsmanship, if he takes action personally then, he will definitely make Qin Yi look even better. When, on AO2 Peak, a loud bell suddenly rang. The thick and ancient bronze bell buzzed, and the sound vibrated among the blue clouds. As the sound of the ancient bell rang, the whole place, which was noisy just now, instantly became silent. AO2 Sword Debate is a grand event every 5 years, aiming at selecting talents to become the backbone of the future. Therefore, there is no need to elaborate too much before the conference. There is no such thing as the kind of school where the leader and principal talk a lot of nonsense before the school starts and you won't remember a word of it. As soon as the bell rings, it means the sword discussion begins. It started. I don't know who will be first in line. On Ji Yuyi's side, she stood up expectantly and looked towards the Xuanji sword field. After the bells settled, 2 sword posts suddenly appeared on each of the 5 sword fields. The name on the sword sticker will glow, and at the same time, the light will also connect to the person who wrote the sword sticker in the vast sea of people. From the Zontian sword field, as soon as the 2 sword stickers emerged, Qinyi was still searching for Xiao Qingyu's position when he suddenly felt a beam of light falling on him. Ji Yuyi on the side pulled his sleeve in surprise. Qinyi, you are actually the first one. Qinyi looked along the light and saw that one of the 2 sword stickers suspended on the Zontian sword field was exactly what he had written before. Such a coincidence. You actually asked me to fight in the first battle. The square of AO2 Peak was crowded with people, and the elders of the entire famous sword sect, including the leader, were all in the Guanlin Pavilion at the highest point of the peak. Ji Yuyanshan also came early in the morning. Although he doesn't like to participate in public places, as the master of a peak, he must attend such a grand event as the AO2 sword debate. He has been watching his daughter and future son-in-law, and he is also looking forward to their performance today. But at this moment, I suddenly heard the alchemy elder say with a smile, "Tisk, Ji Yuyanshan, your disciple is really outstanding. He neither repays the Xuanji sword field nor the Tianji sword field, but actually avenged the execution. Heavenly sword field, could it be that your dripping sword is actually good at the heaven-slaying sword technique?" As soon as these words came out, the other elders also smiled. Since Ji Yuyanshan is known as the dripping sword, he is naturally good at the Xuanji sword technique. Anyone who knows his details also knows that he is not good at other swordsmanship. As his disciple, Qinyi chose the Tianjin sword field this time. What the hell is going on? Everyone looked at Ji Yuyanshan with shocked expressions. He guessed that his disciple Qinyi might have made a mistake accidentally. After all, it was my first time to participate in the AO2 sword debate, so it was possible that I made a mistake due to nervousness. But now, there is nothing you can do if you make a mistake. The venue has been determined, and it is impossible to make new arrangements just for you. Well, unless you are a genius of Hua Yunfeng's level. What the hell is this kid Qinyi doing? Ji Yuyanshan squinted his eyes and became a little angry. Last night, he gave many instructions to Qinyi to choose Xuanji's sword field today. Even if Qinyi disobeys and chooses Tianji's sword field today, at least Qinyi is really good at Tianji's sword technique. However, Ji Yuyanshan only taught him the heaven-destroying sword technique orally once and never practiced it even once. Now he has signed up for the Tianjin sword field. Are you trying to challenge the hell-level difficulty yourself? This boy is really disobedient. Single quote. Ji Yuyanshan sighed in his heart, this was all going to happen soon. Even if he wanted to help him make arrangements as an elder, it would be too late. Thinking of this, he glanced at Gan Lusong, the alchemy elder, with an unhappy expression. If I remember correctly, Elder Gan Lusong was in charge of the personnel arrangements for this AO2 sword debate. The normal arrangement is for people to play randomly, but this time Qinyi appeared at the Tianjin sword field in the first game. You would not believe it if you said it was a coincidence. In addition, Elder Gan jumped out to laugh so quickly. Qinyi was the first to play, which was definitely his deliberate arrangement. Originally, Elder Gan had a bad temper in his heart and had no chance to vent it. This time, it was Qinyi who gave him the opportunity. He just wanted to put Qinyi first to prevent Ji Yuyanshan from helping him change it as an elder. Elder Gan, you are so clever. Ji Yuyanshan replied coldly. Elder Ji Yuyanshan, I don't understand what you are saying. However, let's just think that you are complimenting me. Thank you very much. Gan Lusong smiled proudly. Let's look at the square of AO2 Peak. At this time, the 5 major sword fields are launching defensive light arrays at the same time. The person connected by the sword posts automatically received a pulling force and was pulled onto the ring. Qinyi drifted with the wind and landed at the Tianjin sword field. As soon as he came on stage, Ji Yuyi immediately chased him and cheered him up. And far away, in the camp on Hua Yunfeng's side, Sheng Wanqing suddenly saw this scene and was a little stunned. This kid actually chose the heaven-slashing sword field. He couldn't help but exchange glances with Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi. Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi smiled at the same time and responded with an, "I understand," expression. It's better now. There is no need to ask someone to deal with Qin Yi. On the Tianzhan sword field, he, Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi, are the strongest competitors. Once they meet Qin Yi later, they will definitely use their killing moves at the beginning to let him have a good time. Qin Yi, as the person involved, had no idea at this time that he had chosen a Tianzhan sword field at random, and that there were so many people plotting against him behind his back. After he came on the field, he caught an iron sword flying in the air. For the sake of fairness, everyone must use the special iron sword of sword theory, the most common sword. And his opponent didn't know which peak he belonged to. From the moment the two people stood on the ring, a purple film was born in the middle of the ring, which was an isolation cover. The existence of the isolation cover means that it is time for the two of them to prepare. When the two of them grabbed the iron swords, the purple film isolation barrier in the middle of the ring disappeared without a trace in an instant. As soon as the isolation barrier disappears, it means that the sword discussion begins. The opponent's iron sword suddenly glowed, and he took the lead. The sky-cutting sword technique mainly highlights 1. Profit. And as mentioned before, any sword technique depends on two aspects. Either defeat the opponent by one force, or use speed to suppress the opponent throughout the entire process. But the sky-destroying sword technique almost only has one optional feature, and that is the speed feature. Because the biggest feature of the sky-destroying sword technique is that after the true energy is condensed, the weapon in your hand will become sharper. Even if it is an ordinary piece of wrought iron, with the blessing of the Zhenshin sword technique, it can become as sharp as clay. In this case, coupled with unparalleled speed, it can maximize its advantages. But if you choose the direction of strength, it will not be of much help, because it is already cutting iron like clay, and killing people is like cutting tofu. Why do you need so much strength? Instead of being able to strike someone with one miraculous blow with great force, you can stab someone with 3 swords at absolute speed. Which one is better or worse is obvious. For Qin Yi, who was participating in the sword debate for the first time, his reaction was a bit slower than the opponent's. The moment the isolation barrier disappeared, the other party took a preemptive strike. As the saying goes, the first strike is the strongest. If you strike first, it means you have the initiative and can make the first move. Once you make a move, the opponent can only fall into a passive position and have to follow your moves to change their moves. The opponent is very fast, his steps are like ghosts, and his swordsmanship is like a golden stream of light. It is worth mentioning that Qin Yi's views on speed and strength are different from the general view. He felt that the sky-destroying sword technique was extremely sharp and could be used to maximize its power when combined with the advantage of speed, but it would also be good if combined with strength. After all, not all opponents are like tofu for you to chop up at will. Once your opponent is as hard as a rock, it doesn't matter if you strike him with 10 swords. But if you are strong and can pierce the vital point with one sword, it will be over with that one sword strike. Why waste the effort of 10 swords on something that can be ended with one sword? With his maximum comprehension, in fact, he has mastered both speed and strength with great proficiency. At this moment, seeing that the opponent's main skill was speed, he decided to do the opposite and use strength to defeat the opponent. In terms of realm, the opponent is not as strong as him, only the 9th layer realm of Qi refining. Probably the person who arranged this sword discussion also wanted to see Qin Yi's level first. Seeing the opponent moving left and right, suddenly a golden sword came straight towards his chest. As soon as the golden light appeared, the iron sword was like a golden snake, suddenly leaping out from the grass and biting the human's vital part with its sharp fangs. Qin Yi saw the opportunity and the iron sword in his hand suddenly flashed with golden light. Compared with the opponent's sword, if the golden light on the opponent's iron sword is like stars, then the golden light shining on his iron sword is like a sun. He shook the iron sword, letting the light from the iron sword shine on the opponent's eyes. This sudden golden light dazzled the eyes, making the other party's vision blurry for an instant. And Qin Yi just seized this momentary opportunity, suddenly grabbed the hilt of the iron sword with both hands, waved the iron sword like a big stick, and hit him hard in the waist. With a bang, his opponent was sent flying more than 10 meters away by his sword. After falling to the ground, he coughed up blood. This was also because he held back his hand. The move he just made was with the back of his sword, using blunt force. If he swung it out with the sword blade, his fellow disciple would be cut in half and cut into 2 pieces. The fellow disciple who fell to the ground also knew how powerful he was, and even more so, he knew that Qin Yi was merciful to him. He rubbed his waist and ribs, climbed up, cupped his hands and clasped his fists. "Thank you for your mercy." Qin Yi smiled slightly and nodded in response. "If you have no grievances and no enmity, show mercy if you can. This is the first time I've seen someone majoring in strength with the heaven-destroying sword technique. He's so awesome." The disciple praised him and walked off the stage thoughtfully. Under the ring, Ji Yi cheered for Qin Yi's victory. Except for her, everyone else's focus seemed to be on Qin Yi's strength attribute. For a time, the participants at the Tianjin sword field were all talking, laughing or giving pointers. It seems that Qin Yi's victory is nothing at all. In itself, defeating a qi-refining 9th layer disciple is indeed nothing. After all, you, Qin Yi, are in the foundation establishment stage. Bullying a qi-refining stage disciple would be normal if you win, but it would be embarrassing if you lose. This fool actually uses the strength lineage to kill the sword. It really makes me laugh to death. The heaven-destroying sword technique has been refined through various deductions by countless ancestors, and they all believe that it is only suitable for speed, but this person insists on using the sword in a slanted direction. This is also because he has not met a master. Once he meets a master, he will definitely fail miserably. If you follow the power line, your speed is destined to be slowed down. If you don't increase your speed, you won't be able to achieve the ultimate instant kill with one sword. Among the sky-cutting sword techniques, the most talked about one is instant kill with one sword. Because of the characteristics of the sky-destroying sword technique, it can completely accumulate the speed attribute, and by pushing the speed to the extreme, you can perform instant kill with one sword. Among the younger generation, Hua Yunfeng almost used instant kill sword in the last AO2 sword competition. Now after 5 years, Hua Yunfeng must have completely mastered this sword. In the hearts of all the disciples who practice the heaven-destroying sword technique, instant killing sword has become the supreme sword, and it is the goal they pursue throughout their lives. But Qin Yi, a fool, actually took a completely opposite path, and wanted to use his strength to conquer 10 groups at once. You have such brute strength, how about practicing Xuanji swordsmanship? The essence of Xuanji's sword technique is to accumulate power, just like a wave, which is superimposed layer by layer. At the 9th level, the force is the most powerful. Why do you need to learn the heaven-destroying sword technique? While the crowd was making fun of them, Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi on the Huayanfeng side were also laughing at this time. As representatives of the younger generation, they have considerable say in how to practice the heaven-destroying sword technique. What an idiot, he used brute force to perform the heaven-destroying sword technique. It's simply ridiculous. With such a brain, I don't know how he escaped from the bloody Forbidden Land alive. Hua Yunfeng suddenly said, "Brother Dao, maybe it will be up to you later." "Look at me." Dao Qianqi glanced at him in confusion, and then quickly understood. Elder Gan Lusong made the personnel arrangements for this year's AO2 sword debate. The relationship between Hua Yunfeng and Elder Gan is that they are both teachers and friends, which is extraordinary. Hua Yunfeng's ability to say this means that he must have gotten the gossip. That means that in the second round, Dao Qianqi will meet Qin Yi from Kuiju Peak. Haha, this opportunity has been given to me, Brother Ji, you can only watch. Dao Qianqi said with a smile. Although Ji Yanbin felt regretful, he couldn't help but suggest, this fool has gone to power. If you meet him later, you might as well tease him a few more times. Let him embarrass himself in public first, and then defeat him severely. Dao Qianqi showed an expression that said he was still talking about it, and said with a smile, "That's for sure. Anyone who dares to make Brother Shengguan feel uncomfortable, and dares to contradict Brother Hua in public, no matter what, I will not let him go easily." Hua Yunfeng just said this casually. In his eyes, Qin Yi was never a major role. He also didn't officially let go of it at all. This time, the only opponent he values is Xiaotai, but he is very confused. Where has Xiaotai gone, and why has he not shown up yet? Is it possible that he really doesn't want to participate in this year's top sword debate? Chapter 91. In Guanlin Pavilion on Ao2 Peak. After seeing Qin Yi's performance, the smiles on many elders' faces became more intense. This time, you, Ji Yu Yanshan, are probably going to be embarrassed. Your disciple not only chose the Tian Zhuan sword field by mistake, but also combined the Tian Zhuan sword technique with the strength attribute. This really adds a lot of laughter to this year's top sword debate. Ji Yu Yanshan wanted to tell Qin Yi a few words. He had only spoken to Qin Yi once about the heaven-destroying sword technique, and the Xuanji sword technique and the Tianji sword technique were discussed the most. He felt that Qin Yi must have applied the theory of Xuanji sword technique to the sky-destroying sword technique, but this was not applicable at all. Even if you say a few words to Qin Yi temporarily at this moment, you may be able to correct the mistakes he will make in the future. But as the peak master, he cannot leave now. This is for the sake of justice. Need to see here to the end. At this time, in the Guanlin Pavilion, a man with gorgeous attire and an astonishing grace came over with his hands behind his back. Yanshan, did your disciple choose the wrong sword field? If he chose the wrong one, you might as well correct him in the next battle. Quote. Ji Yu Yanshan knew who the visitor was without even turning around. Every time this person takes a step, there are 3 petal golden lotuses blooming under his feet. This is the scene of lotuses growing step by step, nascent soul master. The current sect leader of the Mingzhan sect and Ji Yu Yanshan's half-brother, Ji Yu Yan. If it had been someone else's suggestion, Ji Yu Yanshan would have accepted it with the help of Po Sha Donkey. After all, he was good to Qin Yi. However, he did not bother to accept the kindness from the sect leader Ji Yu Yan, and accepted it with disgust in his heart. So, he directly refused. I accept the kindness of the sect master. My disciple did not choose the wrong sword field, so what about the heaven-destroying sword technique? Although I, Ji Yu Yanshan, am not good at the heaven-destroying sword technique, my disciples may not be the same as me. At the same time, I also believe in my disciples, so I won't bother you, sect master. Sect leader Ji Yu Yan smiled slightly. It was impossible to resolve the estrangement between the two brothers. And the bigger the power, the bigger the family, the less kinship and blood ties there are between brothers and sisters. In ordinary families, brothers are close to sisters, but in royal families, it is common for brothers to kill brothers and brothers to kill fathers. The sect is actually like a royal family. In the eyes of outsiders, Ji Yu Yanshan and Ji Yu Yan seem to have a decent relationship, but only they know that the gap between them is as deep as the sky and they will never get back together in this life. Moreover, in order for Ji Yu Yan to maintain his rule in the Mingzhan sect, he must also suppress Ji Yu Yanshan's lineage. Just like the sovereign clan, 2 princes compete for the throne. After the winner wins, he will often kill the loser. If he is not killed, if some of his ministers are dissatisfied with him and run to support the other party, wouldn't it be possible in a matter of minutes? Give the other party a chance to rebel. Because of this, Ji Yu Yan usually seemed to treat Kui Jufeng well, but in fact, Kui Jufeng's past disciples always had the worst qualifications in the same class. As far as potential is concerned, your disciple is indeed good. If you train him well, he may be able to succeed Yu Yanshan and carry the great Liang of Kuiju Peak in the future. Ji Yu Yanshan only responded with a sneer. This is very clear. No matter how talented Qin Yi is, his future peak will be the peak master of Kuiju Peak. The son-in-law only takes over the position of his father-in-law. As for the throne of the leader of the famous sword sect, it belongs to Ji Yu Yan and his family. Sect master, are you really going to take out the shocking dragon sword this time as the reward for the chief sword leader? Ji Yu Yanshan suddenly remembered how high-spirited and confident Qin Yi was last night, and subconsciously asked. Yes, it is time to establish a future successor for the famous sword sect. Ji Yu Yanhei's answer confirmed it. Elder Gan on the side suddenly laughed and said, Ji Yu Yanshan, do you think your disciple can become the chief swordsman? Ji Yu Yanshan did not deny it, but asked, if it is, what should we do? Elder Gan burst out laughing. Is this possible? This is not how daydreaming is done. Including the sect leader Ji Yuyan also smiled. There was no need to respond to the impossible assumption. Because if you say it, it will be in vain. Seeing everyone's attitude, Ji Yuyanshan stopped talking and said silently in his heart, Qin Yi, you have to give me a voice. Although there were a large number of people participating in the AO2 sword debate, the speed of the competition was also very fast. In the first round, Ji Yuyi also participated in the competition at the Xuanji sword field. Fortunately, she won too. Qin Yi finally saw Xiao Qingyu and Xu Xinren in the Xuanji sword field. After not seeing him for more than a month, Xiao Qingyu seemed to have lost a lot of weight. After seeing him from a distance, a light of surprise shone in his eyes. In fact, she had been worried about Qin Yi since she came back from the bloody Forbidden Land last time. Now that she saw Qin Yi safe and sound, her heart finally settled. Compared to her, Xu Xinren looked at him dreamily. He hadn't gone to the cave where the two had a tryst for a long time. She thought Qin Yi didn't want her anymore. But when they met today, Qin Yi greeted both women without leaving any trace. After receiving Qin Yi's response, Xu Xinren's mood became cheerful again. About 2 hours later, the second round started. As Qin Yi expected, he was indeed arranged by someone with a heart. In the second round, he was still in the first group. 2 sword stickers were suspended in the sword field, each of the sword stickers glowed, pulling the bound person up from under the ring. As soon as Qin Yi landed, he heard an exclamation from the audience. Ji Yuyi pointed at the person opposite and told him, he is Dao Qianqi. Dao Qianqi, among the younger generation, one of the top 3 masters of killing the sky. It can be said that he is one of the representatives of the sky-cutting swordsmanship. Qin Yi ran into him as soon as he came on stage in the second round. Dao Qianqi had a smile on his face at this moment and glanced at Ji Yuyi in the audience. Junior sister Yi, you seem surprised to see me. Ji Yuyi snorted and ignored him, only telling Qin Yi, you have to be careful. Dao Qianqi waved his hand from the distance and held an iron sword in his palm. Junior sister Yi, don't worry, I will never hurt his life. Qin Yi also grabbed the special iron sword and said in his heart, this is only the second round, just give me strength, okay? If that's the case, then I don't have to be polite. As they spoke, the isolation barrier between the two began to disappear. When the isolation barrier disappeared, the two did not take action immediately. Qin Yi looked at Dao Qianqi, and Dao Qianqi looked at him. It's just that Dao Qianqi's gaze was quite teasing. You who specialize in strength, once you use your hands, you won't even be able to touch the corners of my clothes, right? Dao Qianqi. In order to prevent others from saying that I bully the weak and bully the weak, Qin Yi, I can let you make the first move. Make the first move. Qin Yi sneered in his heart, if you want me to take action first, don't regret it. Are you sure you want me to make the first move? Dao Qianqi waved casually, just come. Okay, then I will do as you wish. Qin Yi took a deep breath, and suddenly all his power was poured into the iron sword in his hand. In everyone's surprised eyes, he disappeared from the spot in an instant. When he appeared the next second, he was already behind Dao Qianqi. With one stroke of the sword, half of Dao Qianqi's head of black hair was cut off. Dao Qianqi only felt a chill on his scalp, but before he could react, Qin Yi pressed down on his heavy sword. With a bang, the iron sword landed heavily on his head like a wooden fish. Dao Qianqi's eyes went black, and for a moment he felt like the world was spinning, things were upside down, he was top-heavy, and fell to the ground involuntarily. As he fell to the ground, the outcome was already decided. Those who were watching the battle were extremely dumbfounded at this time, and they were all in a state of confusion. It should be noted that Dao Qianqi is one of the 3 swordsmen of Zontian. Among the younger generation, he can definitely be called the spokesperson of Zontian swordsmanship. But after such a talented person came on the field with great expectations, he was knocked down by Qin Yi in less than 1 round. Everyone present, except Ji Yuyi, could be said to be expecting Dao Qianqi to defeat Qin Yi in a panic with a few moves. Qin Yi is indeed very strong, but in front of such a veteran master, how can he be enough? However, the facts always surprise everyone. At this moment, Qin Yi easily won the second game, and Dao Qianqi lost even more completely than the Qi refining 9th layer disciple in the first game. At least the Qi refining 9th layer disciple in the first game had an active attack. Dao Qianqi only turned his head once before being completely knocked to the ground. Even half of his hair was cut off. His current image is strange and ugly. He fainted and quickly regained consciousness after being carried off the field. When he woke up, he saw Ji Yanbin and Shangguan Qing coming over and expressed comfort to him. And he could hardly believe that he had lost. It wasn't until he saw the sad eyes and whispers around him that he believed that he had really lost. Defeated at the hands of a Kueiju Peak disciple who had only been a disciple for 2 or 3 months. How is it possible? This is impossible. Dao Qianqi couldn't accept it, so he jumped up and rushed towards Qinyi like a flash of light. Passing through the dense crowd, he grabbed Qinyi's clothes angrily. Brother Dao, don't be impulsive. Ji Yanbin chased him from behind and quickly grabbed him. If you lose, there is nothing to say, but if you take revenge after losing, you will be severely punished in today's grand event. In this situation, whoever takes action will make a mistake. What's the matter? You still want to fight? Qinyi glanced at him contemptuously. Dao Qianqi really wanted to take action, but after Ji Yanbin's reminder, he calmed down the impulse in his heart, let go of Qinyi's clothes, and asked, "What method did you use just now? You are a person who majors in strength. It can't be that fast, are you cheating?" Cheating has also appeared in the previous Aotu sword discussion conference. For example, using talismans and elixirs to secretly improve yourself. Before Qinyi could speak, Ji Yuyi had already stood up to defend him. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't be embarrassed if you can't afford to lose. Cheating or something like that. You can say it out loud. You think the elders in Guanlin Pavilion are blind? If it's cheating, how can they not see it? It's obvious that Qinyi is stronger than you. You are really stingy if you don't admit that you lost. Quote. Ji Yuyi's words made Dao Qianqi speechless. What she said was correct. There were indeed cases of cheating in the Aotu sword debate back then, so later all the elders of the famous sword sect, including the sect leader, would watch the battle in person at Guanlin Pavilion. Under their many pairs of eyes, no one can be sneaky and use evil methods. Qinyi also said at this time, "Your name is Dao Qianqi, right? How long have you been a disciple?" Dao Qianqi's face looked uncertain. What do you mean? Qinyi, if you have just started, forget it. If you have been started for more than a year, it means you are a pig-headed person. I have nothing to say to you. Dao Qianqi was furious and gritted his teeth. You dare to scold me? Qinyi, scolding you. You praise yourself too much. I am just stating the facts. You are not qualified for me to scold you. You keep saying that I major in the line of strength, but who told you that I major in the line of strength? Why do you have to think that a person can only choose between strength and speed? The moment he said this, Qinyi disappeared in front of him, and when he reappeared, he fell behind him. Just like he grabbed Qinyi's clothes just now, Qinyi grabbed his clothes and suddenly lifted him up, pretending to throw him out. Ji Yanbin saw it clearly at this time and suddenly intervened to stop him. Qinyi, don't go too far. Qinyi sneered, and his gold core aura suddenly burst out, knocking Ji Yanbin away 3 steps, then grabbed Dao Qianqi and threw him 7 or 8 meters away. Dao Qianqi was reminded by Ji Yanbin not to take action privately at the conference, so he didn't take full precautions. Qinyi took action as soon as he said it, catching him off guard and making him look embarrassed in front of everyone again. At this moment, the crowd suddenly became restless, talking, and noisy. While everyone was making fun of Dao Qianqi, they were also amazed that this Qinyi actually had the aura of the gold core stage. It turns out that you are already in the gold core stage. Ji Yanbin condensed his eyes coldly, quite surprised. Qinyi's gold core period has been reached long ago, but this time the news was well sealed. Except for Ji Yuyanshan and Ji Yuyi, no other third person knew about it. In addition, in order to allow him to fight more battles, Ji Yuyanshan also used special secret techniques to help him seal a few acupoints where his aura leaked. This allowed him to hide his cultivation level, and even people who were in the same gold core stage couldn't sense his true state at all unless they sensed it carefully at close range. At this moment, he released his aura completely and no longer covered it up. The gold core aura made everyone below the foundation level feel surrendered. In Guanlin Pavilion, when Elder Gon saw this, he suddenly slapped the table and stood up with a voice like thunder. You are so bold. Aotu is arguing about swords and dares to attack him a second time in private. You should be punished. Sect Master, please severely punish Kweju Peak Qinyi. Ji Yu Yanshan immediately replied. Elder Gon, are you blind? Who made the move first? Could it be that you couldn't see it? Elder Gon. Ji Yu Yanshan, are you indulging your disciples like this? Ji Yu Yanshan. You say I indulge my disciples, but what about your disciple Dao Qianqi? In full view of everyone, are you trying to confuse right and wrong? Seeing the two people arguing, the sect leader Ji Yu Yan smiled slightly. Being a sect leader is like being an emperor. He is not afraid of his ministers fighting with each other, but is afraid of their harmony. The way of an emperor is the way of balance. The struggle between ministers is conducive to the stability of power. At this time, the sect leader Ji Yu Yan was not in a hurry to interrupt the two of them. When the two of them were almost arguing, he said, Okay, Dao Qianqi is the first to take action, and Qinyi is behind. Both of them are at fault, but they have given up now, so forget it, there is no need to argue anymore. Quote. At the venue, Qinyi and Dao Qianqi had indeed given up. After Dao Qianqi was embarrassed for the second time, he was so angry that he had already drawn his sword, but Hua Yunfeng arrived in time and stopped him. No matter what, it's just a verbal dispute. Once weapons are used, it is a real violation of the rules and will be punished. Ji Yu Yan, the sect leader, sighed. Yanshan, you are really a good disciple. You have reached the Gold Core realm within just 2 months of entry. But I think you should have gained a lot in the bloody Forbidden Land, right? At first, even the big guys in Guanlin Pavilion didn't realize that Qinyi was already in the Gold Core stage. It wasn't until Qinyi broke through his own blockade and completely released the aura of the Gold Core stage that all the big shots in Guanlin Pavilion suddenly came to their senses. According to Zhao Yanshan's idea, at least the realm blockade is exposed in the 4th round, so that the strength can be retained to the maximum extent. It's a pity that in the 2nd round, Qinyi's Gold Core trump card was exposed. With Gan Lusong's personality, he will definitely increase Qinyi's strength again in the future. He felt that there was a lot of luck in winning against Dao Qianqi just now. On the one hand, Dao Qianqi was careless and underestimated the enemy, allowing Qinyi to take the lead. On the other hand, Dao Qianqi came to power with the intention of teasing and did not have the intention of victory from the beginning. If Dao Qianqi had used all his strength to fight against the enemy from the beginning, Qinyi's battle would have been a tough one. Dao Qianqi's personal strength is definitely not weak, and his name as the 3 sky-slashing musketeers is definitely not in vain. Qinyi wanted to win against him, but the final result would most likely be to the extent of injuring the enemy by 1,000 and himself losing 800. The master is so complimentary. This kid Qinyi is very lucky. He did have some adventures in the bloody Forbidden Land. Ji Yu Yanshan nodded slightly. Even he believed that Qinyi got an opportunity in the bloody Forbidden Land, so he broke through the Gold Core realm. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult for a normal person to reach the Gold Core stage through cultivation without reaching the age of 30 or 40. On Aotu Peak, Ji Yu Yi was full of joy and was talking around Qinyi. She was indeed pleasantly surprised. Originally, when she saw Qinyi meet Dao Qianqi in the 2nd round, she was worried about him, but who knew that in the end, Qinyi won the match easily. She won so easily that she even had the illusion that Dao Qianqi was a vain person. As for Dao Qianqi, he had already left Aotu Peak after being taken down by Hua Yunfeng. At this moment, he was in the Tongtian River, venting his rage against the water. The shocking sword energy is not affected by the formation here, and the golden sword light is like the great sun sword, swaying all over the sky, almost cutting off the entire Tongtian River. Qinyi, sooner or later, I will kill him. Dao Qianqi gritted his teeth and swore in his heart. Hua Yunfeng comforted him. Even I didn't notice that he actually has the realm of the Gold Core stage. It seems that his master Ji Yu Yanshan helped him hide it. You don't know his true realm, as long as he appears. He carelessly underestimated the enemy. Although he won this battle with disgrace, it is undeniable that he has indeed achieved certain attainments in the sky-destroying sword technique. Quote. Ji Yanbin also admitted. Originally, we all thought that he majored in strength, but we didn't expect that he turned out to be a master of both speed and strength. In fact, it is difficult for one person to take into account the two attributes of strength and speed. Because strength and speed themselves conflict with each other. If you have to take care of both, often neither can reach the highest level. Unless it is a once-in-a-century genius like Hua Yunfeng. Dao Qianqi was dissatisfied. If we really want to fight with hard power, he will definitely not be as good as me. In his heart, he hated Qin Yi for being despicable and using such small means. If he had not been careless and underestimated the enemy, the outcome would not have been like this. Hua Yunfeng did not deny it. If you had gone all out from the beginning, the outcome between you and him would have been 50-50. 55 points. Dao Qianqi glanced at Hua Yunfeng in surprise. Hua Yunfeng actually gave Qin Yi such a high evaluation. Doesn't that mean that Qin Yi's strength is really on par with him? Brother Dao, don't worry, there is still me. When I meet him, I will definitely get back the face you lost. Ji Yanbin patted him on the shoulder. Dao Qianqi nodded. You can't be careless either. Ji Yanbin, I know. Hua Yunfeng thought for a while and suddenly said, Brother Ji, it seems it's time to teach you the secret of instant kill with one sword. An instant kill with one sword. The supreme secret of heaven-destroying sword technique. In the last AO2 sword debate, Hua Yunfeng was one step away from being able to perform it. If he had performed it at that time, there would be no such thing as double sword heads. Xiahou Tai will be defeated. By this time, Hua Yunfeng had indeed mastered it, and was going to teach it to Ji Yanbin. Brother Hua, do you want to teach me an instant kill sword? Ji Yanbin was extremely surprised. Hua Yunfeng, the original instant kill sword was extremely difficult, but after I mastered this method, I also created a new way of using it, which can achieve the same power. Now I hand over this secret to you. As long as you master this secret, no one will be your opponent in this Tianzhan sword field. Quote. Ji Yanbin was overjoyed. Thank you so much, Brother Hua. Hua Yunfeng. Brother Dao, you can also understand this secret together. The villain Qin Yi has an arrogant and ambitious character. He is such a scumbag. We also have the responsibility to suppress his arrogant arrogance. Ji Yanbin and Dao Qianqi looked at each other, that's for sure. Hua Yunfeng taught them the secret of instant killing with a sword at this time, but they also knew what he meant. However, people like Qin Yi deserve to die. It has only been 2 or 3 months since he started, and look how many people Qin Yi has already offended. First he offended Hua Yunfeng, then offended the alchemy elder of Task Pavilion, and then offended Shengguan Cheng. Some people vaguely said that he had even offended Song Shanming. In all the years the famous sword sect has been established, there has never been anyone like him who has offended so many people in such a short time since he started. By the way, not to mention those who were far away, but those who were closer to Kuiju Peak, even his junior disciples resented him one by one. What's the use of keeping such an unsociable person? Ji Yanbin realized at this moment that the sword of instant killing should be used as long as it is not used. I'm afraid that with the power of the instant kill sword, Qin Yi will die suddenly on the spot with his head missing. Let's talk about Qin Yi. After Dao Qianqi was taken away by Hua Yunfeng, he was also taken away from the scene by Ji Yuyi. Ji Yuyi was also afraid that he and Dao Qianqi would have another dispute. It would be bad if he was punished for this. In Guanlin Pavilion, her father is watching, and this must not be made difficult for her father. At this moment, the two of them were at a spring halfway up the mountain. Compared with the bustle on AO2 Peak, it is very quiet here. Qin Yi, you are too impulsive. Fortunately, no elder came out to blame you just now, otherwise you will definitely be punished. I didn't do it first, so what are you afraid of? Qin Yi didn't care. He was actually not afraid at all whether he was to blame or not. This is mainly due to his own confidence. I haven't had a chance to use the 2 nascent soul experience cards in my pocket yet. If a blind elder came out to confuse right and wrong and disgust him, he wouldn't mind using a nascent soul experience card to let the other person experience the oppression of the nascent soul. But if you act recklessly, it will definitely be difficult for Dad in Guanlin Pavilion. After all, it was a girl, so Ji Yuyi had more worries. Qin Yi, that's right. It's really not good to embarrass Master. Ji Yuyi smiled slightly. I know you are very angry, let me rub your shoulders for you, okay? She stood up and walked behind Qin Yi. But before she could move her hands, she felt her soft waist being forcibly pulled into Qin Yi's arms, and then Qin Yi's hand touched the bow of her skirt again. Ji Yi blushed in anxiety and quickly grabbed his hand. No, this is outside. If someone discovers it, I will be ashamed. What should I do? If I don't vent my feelings, I'm afraid it will be difficult to calm down. Qin Yi deliberately teased her. In fact, even Dao Qianqi was not enough to affect his emotions. Then, Ji Yi bit her lip, extremely embarrassed, and whispered, I'll use my hands, okay. In AO2 sword discussion, the total number of rounds in each sword field is 9 rounds. In the 9th round, it is the final peak showdown. The winner determined at this time is called split sword head. In fact, getting that split sword head position is almost the end. Because after that, the previous chief swordsman will come out and stand in the ring. Any sword leader is qualified to challenge him. The winner will be the new chief swordsman. But anyone with any brains can see that in this session of swordsmanship, the sect leader has made it clear that Hua Yunfeng has been re-elected as the chief swordsman. Therefore, I took out that shocking dragon sword as a reward. Putting aside the selfishness of the sect leader, even if the sect leader doesn't have this intention, few people would be willing to challenge Hua Yunfeng. Because Hua Yunfeng is so strong, with such an obvious gap, as long as they stand face to face with him, the weak will immediately feel a fear of being inferior. Furthermore, the younger generation in the famous sword sect are more or less familiar with Hua Yunfeng, so they also know his background. Rather than challenge a goal that is impossible to win, it is better to give up when it is good. If we stop here, the split sword head still has its own glory and can be shown off. Qin Yi returned to the peak from halfway up the mountain, still with Ji Yi by his side. Ji Yi had been pouting and expressing strong dissatisfaction since she went up the mountain. When they reached the top of the mountain, Qin Yi smiled and coaxed her, okay, if you raise your mouth again, it will reach the sky. Ji Yi glared at him resentfully, her pink lips bulging angrily. My mouth is so sore now. Qin Yi took out a bottle of Guiyuan pill and stuffed it into her hand. Here you go, eat it as a snack. You won't be sore after eating 2 pills. If you eat Guiyuan Dan as a snack, if my father finds out, he will definitely call you a prodigal. Ji Yi said. Qin Yi smiled and said, if he knew that I was feeding you, he would definitely not scold me. Humph. Ji Yi wrinkled her little nose, remembering the scene just now. Her face was on fire. How could anyone mess with a girl's mouth like this? Soon the 3rd round of sword discussion began. This time, Qin Yi was not ranked first. And when it was his turn, his opponent was not Ji Yanbin, but another master in the foundation building stage. Since Qin Yi has exposed his strength in the Gold Core period, there is no need to hide his weakness anymore. After he came on the stage, he defeated the opponent with 2 or 3 swords and won easily. It was smooth sailing for him, but not so smooth for Ji Yi. When it was her 3rd turn, she happened to meet her cousin Ji Yu Qingshuang. Although they are sisters, AO2's sword discussion is not a worldly thing. This is a grand gathering of the sect, and there must be no disrespect. But Ji Yu Qingshuang didn't make her lose embarrassingly, and only knocked the iron sword out of her hand. But even so, when Ji Yi came back, she was still dejected and unhappy. Don't be discouraged, your level is lower than hers. It's normal for you to lose at her hands. Qin Yi consoled him. Ji Yi's cheeks were as bulging as buns. How can you be so comforting? Qin Yi smiled and said, I'm telling the truth, you are indeed inferior to her in the profound meaning of Xuanji swordsmanship. But if AO2 discusses swordsmanship, it is not limited to Xuanji swordsmanship, she will definitely not be your opponent. Only then did Ji Yi burst into laughter. Of course, I know, Qinglian sword song, and as long as I use it, it will definitely make her jaw drop. Speaking of martial arts marks, Qin Yi taught her step by step and could temporarily imprint the mark on her. But later, after the two had the most intimate relationship, the martial arts imprint of Qinglian sword song had been copied and completely imprinted on Ji Yi's dantian. Now, even without Qin Yi's assistance, she can still fully use Qinglian sword song. However, Qinglian sword song is wonderful, but it is not suitable for AO2's sword discussion. AO2's sword discussion can only use his own swordsmanship. However, I'm still not happy. Ji Yi sighed. It was only the third round. She had only entered the third round of the 9-round sword debate, which was discouraging just thinking about it. Qin Yi suggested. Then, let's go sit on the mountainside again. Ji Yi's face burned when she heard that, and she quickly covered her little mouth. I don't want to go. Qin Yi laughed and had no choice but to take her to sit aside and wait for the fourth round. The farther back the leader's sword argument goes, the more efficient it becomes. Because the disciples in the chi refining stage are still obsessed with the subtlety of their moves, the fighting time is relatively long between gestures. Those who can enter the fourth round of sword discussion are basically disciples who have entered the foundation building stage and the gold core stage. There are very few in the gold core stage, and most of them are disciples in the foundation establishment stage. In the foundation building stage, spiritual power can be freely circulated within the body. At this time, the sword technique is far more powerful than in the chi refining stage. In a duel, 1 or 2 moves can often determine the winner. In the fourth round, Qin Yi discovered that Xu Xinren was defeated. By the fifth round, Xiao Qingyu and Ji Yu Qingshuang were also defeated. As they are in the chi refining stage, their ability to advance into the fourth and fifth rounds is actually more of a matter of luck. In the sword field of Xuanji sword art, there are many masters in the foundation stage. In addition, there is also a repealer, who is in the early stage of gold core. Although Ji Yu Qingshuang's swordsmanship skills are high, her cultivation level is low. She cannot make up the gap with gold core masters based on her skills alone. Mainly because the 5-color stone hanging on her chest has not yet awakened. Once the 5-color stone is awakened in the future, her destiny will change. At that time, her strength will advance by leaps and bounds. After that, the 6th and 7th rounds were the same as before. No need to go into details. Qin Yi still hasn't met Ji Yanbin. The opponents he has met are all disciples who are close to the peak of foundation building. In comparison, he also saw Ji Yanbin play. Ji Yanbin's opponents were all in the early or mid-stage of foundation building. It was much more difficult for Ji Yanbin to win than he was. During this period, Ji Yanbin also glanced at him several times. After the 7th round, there were only the last 4 people left in the Tianzhan sword field. Qin Yi, Ji Yanbin, Shui Tianying, Xing Xiaofeng. Shui Tianying was at the pinnacle of foundation building, and he was extremely lucky to be able to finish the first 7 rounds. As for Xing Xiaofeng, he is a repealer and a real member of the Gold Core realm world. He is very senior. Although he is also a member of the younger generation of disciples, he joined the sect earlier than Hua Yunfeng. This kind of person's talent and potential may not be comparable to that of a genius, but his rich background is very difficult to deal with. When the 8th round started, the first ones to play were Ji Yanbin and Shui Tianying. After that, Qin Yi faced Xing Xiaofeng. Seeing this result, Qin Yi sneered in his heart. Why didn't he understand that someone was deliberately consuming his strength so that he would be in poor condition during the peak duel, so that he would not be Ji Yanbin's opponent? Xing Xiaofeng's age must be 27 or 28 years old, but his actual appearance looks older, like a man in his 30s. How can such a person, who is also a younger generation, and those teenage chi refining disciples, be able to beat him? However, the world of cultivation is a world without fairness. There are only strengths and weaknesses. If you have the ability, you make the rules. If you don't have the ability, you can only follow the rules. After the two came on the field, they still did not take action immediately. Xing Xiaofeng looked at Qin Yi contemptuously and said, "If someone asks me to take action, don't be polite, but I want to give you a chance. It's not too late for you to admit defeat now. As long as you take the initiative to admit defeat, then I won't have to take action." Quote, "You can admit defeat in AO2's sword debate, but if you admit defeat in AO2's sword debate, you will not only lose your own face, but also the face of your monastery and the master. Just like the Olympic Games, no matter what the event, you can casually play together casually, but in the Olympic Games, do you dare to admit defeat? Then you will lose the face of the country and will be spurned by the whole people. Why do you think you have a chance to win?" Qin Yi found it funny. Xing Xiaofeng said with a serious smile, "No matter who I am, once I take action, I will do my best. The opportunity has been given to you. If you don't want it, don't regret it." As he spoke, his breath had spread. The aura of the gold core realm world was fully suppressed. The sharp golden light centered on him was like the afterglow of the setting sun in autumn, spreading all over the earth. Seeing this, Qin Yi also exploded his gold core aura. The same golden light covered the entire arena again and again. At this time, the two of them swung their swords at the same time. After the two people's spiritual energy was injected into the ordinary iron sword, the edge of the iron sword spread out, like a rare weapon. Qin Yi's iron sword exudes orange light. Xing Xiaofang's iron sword exuded a dazzling golden light. In the field of Tianjin sword art, sharpness is its core. The sharpness of the heaven-destroying sword technique is also divided into 9 levels. Its 9-level sharpness can be compared to the 9 stars flash of Tianji's sword technique. Once the 9th level of sharpness is mastered, the long sword will not only be extremely sharp, but also have a layer of sword energy on its outer ring. After it is used, the sword energy will rage within 9 meters. Therefore, although there was 4 or 5 meters between them at this time, they did not need to be close at all. The manic golden sword energy collided with each other, and they clashed with each other more than 300 times. The entire Tianjin sword field was swaying. If it hadn't been for the blessing of the formation, the place would have been shaken by sand and rocks. Xing Xiaofang is a man of few words, but what he says is true. His shots are 9-level sharp and extremely fierce. Qin Yi fought with level 6 sharpness. During the fight, the sword energy approached Qin Yi, making it look like he was at a disadvantage. With the same realm and the same swordsmanship, if you don't use other techniques, it's really not that easy to win. Single quote. In Qin Yi's mind, there are at least 30 ways to defeat Xing Xiaofang. But his 30 methods all require the use of skill marks in the Dantian. These skill marks are not part of the heaven-destroying sword technique. If used at the venue, I am afraid it will cause criticism. After thinking about it, he decided to outsmart him. Since the opponent used level 9 sharpness at the beginning, he would use level 6 sharpness to defend. Under the ebb and flow, it seemed that he was at a disadvantage, but in fact he retained the most power. The two exchanged 26 moves, and suddenly Xing Xiaofang jumped up and floated in the air. Qin Yi took a look and saw that the middle door was wide open. Wasn't this a flaw? He immediately used his spiritual power to control the iron sword, unsheathed the sword, and walked away. Middle. The sharp iron sword roared towards him and was about to penetrate Xing Xiaofang. But in front of Xing Xiaofang, a golden shield suddenly condensed. The shield blocked Qin Yi's iron sword, and at the same time, a golden general appeared faintly behind Xing Xiaofang. The general's figure was shining with golden light, holding his sword high. Qin Yi was confused. Is this also the heaven-destroying sword technique? He has never seen this move before. Xing Xiaofang. This is my own creation, a sword that cuts the sky. At this time, the spectators outside were boiling. Slash the sky with one sword. Xing Xiaofang finally used his sword to cut the sky. Admirers, with admiration on their faces. The lively people were full of surprise. Ji Yanbin, Dao Qianqi, Hua Yunfang and others were also looking at the Tianjin sword field at this time. Ji Yanbin said, "This Xing Xiaofang's sky-cutting sword is extremely powerful. If I face him, I'm afraid I will have to pay a heavy price even if I win." Hua Yunfang also praised, "Xing Xiaofang deserves to be called a swordsman." Dao Qianqi gritted his teeth and said, "It would be better for the man named Qin to die under this sword. The sword that cuts the sky does not belong to the sword technique of cutting the sky." When Xing Xiaofang first went on a mission, he passed through ancient ruins and got a sword intention from the ancient sword marks. Later, he understood it and created the sword technique. When this sword technique was first born, it was also approved by the sect master. Praise. Cut the sky, cut the sky, cut the sky with one sword. The phantom of the golden general behind Xing Xiaofang was rumored to be an ancient overlord, powerful and powerful. Qin Yi's face twitched when he faced this sword. Can I use my own sword technique? Xing Xiaofang. Of course it can be used. As long as it is not a sword technique from another school, it can be used as long as it is self-created. Isn't your master's dripping sword also derived from the Xuanji sword technique and created by himself? While he was talking, Xing Xiaofang's golden sword had already been slashed in the air. The golden long sword looked like it was really 40 meters long. Huge, big and thick. Qin Yi smiled when he heard this. If I had told you earlier, my own creation would be usable. If I had told you earlier, I would not have to be so passive. Qinglian Sword Song is difficult to use, because this sword technique was known from the beginning. It came from his understanding of the Enlightenment Stone, and it belongs to the Destiny Sword technique. But in addition to Qinglian Sword Song, there are many more swordsmanship marks in Qin Yi's Dantian. Seeing that the 40-meter-long thick golden giant sword was about to come down, defense should be the main focus at this moment. Defense. Athena's ultimate move is the first choice. In line with the principles of heaven, it exists. The shield is intertwined with metallic spiritual power, which can not only defend, but also reflect damage. In an instant, Qin Yi took a defensive stance with Athena's ultimate move, Holy Shield of Awe. Half squatting down, the golden spiritual power in front of him quickly formed a holy shield. Boom! When the 40-meter golden giant sword fell in the air, the Holy Shield of Awe in front of Qin Yi perfectly resisted it. Since the two of them are at similar levels of strength, their attack and defense almost cancel each other out. The 40-meter-long golden giant sword turned into nothingness, and Qin Yi's golden holy shield also exploded and shattered. Xing Xiaofeng, who was in midair, was surprised when he saw that his sky-cutting sword was blocked. You must know that since he created this sky-cutting sword, no one has ever been able to defeat it. Originally, he wanted to keep this sky-cutting sword for use in this championship's finals. But there is no way. Qin Yi is also in the gold core stage. If he wants to save some energy for the finals, he must fight quickly, and the prerequisite for a quick fight is to use the sky-destroying sword. But what he didn't expect was that the heaven-destroying sword technique made its debut today, but it didn't achieve the desired effect. Now, it's my turn. Qin Yi grinned after guarding against the sword that cut through the sky. He originally thought that Aotu's sword had many restrictions, but now that he knew that his own sword technique could be used, he could freely fight. Attack. First choice, Guangxin, light knife style. As long as the sword energy is golden, it is consistent with self-creation. This arena is only so big. When I release my big and thick sword energy, let's see where you can hide. The flower of swiftness. At this moment, Qin Yi's whole body seemed to be surrounded by a layer of golden light. When he raised his right hand, the iron sword in his hand was like the bright sun at noon. He didn't move quickly, and when he waved it casually, a sword aura was more than 10 meters long and several meters wide. The arena of this sword field was almost completely filled with sword energy. What kind of sword technique is this? Xing Xiaofeng realized that he had never seen Qin Yi's sword technique before. What a coincidence, I also created my own sword technique. The first sword energy washed over Xing Xiaofeng. Xing Xiaofeng relied on his strong physique and spiritual power to form a shield to resist. Bang! Although the dazzling golden sword energy was blocked by him, the penetrating power of the sword energy seemed to penetrate through the middle of his bones, making him feel an icy coldness. Xing Xiaofeng admitted that this sword was very strong. Although it was not as powerful as his sky-destroying sword, it was very close. However, just as the sword was finished, Qin Yi swung it a second time and a third time. The first sword was slightly slower, but after the speed of the second and third swords increased, the two dazzling golden sword energies were like the waves of the sea, rushing towards him. Besides, Xing Xiaofeng gritted his teeth. Under the impact of this powerful sword energy, he was unable to fight back and could only defend passively. Therefore, he could only assume a parrying posture and continue to use his spiritual power to form a shield to resist. When the second sword energy was blocked by him again, but his shield also had cracks and was about to break. When the third sword energy rushed over and hit the shield. As expected, the shield was like broken glass, shattering all over the ground. The moment the sword energy exploded, Xing Xiaofeng was knocked back 7 or 8 meters. At the same time, Qin Yi seemed to have successfully accumulated strength. He lifted the iron sword in his hand and the 3 previous sword auras were horizontal sword auras. But what he was planning next was 3 simultaneous vertical sword energies. Light wings continuous slash. Whoosh. The 3 vertical sword energy was like an exploding cutting machine. Looking at the sharp saw teeth, it was devouring him like a life-threatening thing. Xing Xiaofeng was stunned. This Qin Yi, this swordsmanship, is so strong and lasting. His sky-cutting sword only has one sword. But Qin Yi's sword technique has 4 swords. Admit defeat. I admit defeat. Xing Xiaofeng retreated crazily, retreated to the edge of the ring, and then jumped off without looking back. As soon as he jumped off the ring, the 3 vertical sword energy washed over the protective formation of the ring. With the sudden flash of lightning, even the slightest crack appeared in the protective formation. Xing Xiaofeng was so frightened that he thought he was lucky. If he didn't admit defeat in time with a cunning mentality, I'm afraid these 3 sword energies would have overwhelmed him. Even if you don't die under these 3 sword energies, you still have to shed a layer of skin. Looking at myself intact at this time, although it is a bit embarrassing to take the initiative to admit defeat, it is better than being seriously injured. And this is also the general consciousness of repealers. The vast majority of repeaters know that their talents are average and their potential is average, and they just rely on their early entry and relatively deep foundation. For people like them, the most they can do in the future is to become an elder. They cannot enter the core management circle of the Mingjian sect. If you can't get in, why bother fighting? This Qin Yi is very strong. If he fights hard with him, the outcome may be 50-50. But after Wu Wu opened, wasn't there Ji Yanbin behind him? Ji Yanbin is a recognized genius and one of the spokespersons for the heaven-destroying sword technique. Even if he risked his life to defeat Qin Yi, how could he face Ji Yanbin again with his injured body behind him? Most of the repealers are bright-eyed. Although he promised to deal with Qin Yi, since he couldn't deal with it, of course he didn't. It was best to protect himself. He actually gave in. This Xing Xiaofeng, don't you think it's embarrassing? HMPH, you can really say that you admit defeat in the sword debate at AO2. Brazen. At this time, the onlookers under the ring were talking and pointing. Xing Xiaofeng heard it, but he didn't take it seriously and didn't care. Say whatever you want. The name is false, but the destiny is your own. You naive people, when your qualifications are the same as mine, you will know which is more important and which is more important. He avoided the crowd and went down the mountain without saying a word. Qin Yi's victory in this battle seemed easy, but in fact, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy in his body. This, Guangxin, martial arts looks thick and big, which is the result of the release of a large amount of spiritual power. However, it doesn't matter to him. He has a lot of pills in his body. As long as he takes a few more pills, he can make up for it in the next game. However, just as he was thinking this and preparing to get off the ring, a figure suddenly flew over and landed opposite him. Taking a closer look, the person coming was none other than Ji Yanbin. Zontian Sword Field, his last opponent. What are you doing here? Qin Yi was puzzled. He was too impatient. The last scene hadn't even started yet. Ji Yanbin, however, stood up to him. Please. Qin Yi, what do you mean? Ji Yanbin, don't you even know the rules for swordsmanship? In the last game, there is no need to name names. As long as both parties are willing, they can fight at any time. This is indeed the rule of AO2's sword discussion. In fact, the original intention of this rule was to allow both sides to have time to rest in the final battle. Therefore, as long as both parties agree, even if it is delayed by an hour, it is still in line with the rules. In this way, both sides can maintain their peak combat power for the decisive battle. But Ji Yanbin jumped out at this time, making it clear that he wanted to take advantage of others' danger. Qin Yi had just finished a fight and had not had time to rest. It was better for him to wait for work. Now that he was in full condition, he jumped out to provoke. Both parties are willing. Then what if I'm not willing? Qin Yi sneered. Ji Yanbin shrugged indifferently. If you are scared, it doesn't matter. You can rest and I can wait for you. Oh, provoking generals, what a low-level provocation. Would I accept such a simple provocation from you? Qin Yi ignored him and went directly off the ring to rest. When he got off the stage, those watching the show started talking again. Tisk, did you see that Qin Yi from Kuiju Peak is afraid of Ji Yanbin? No, Ji Yanbin is a recognized genius and one of the 3 major spokespersons. Qin Yi defeated Dao Qianqi before. It was a trick. Now Ji Yanbin has learned Qin Yi's methods through several previous games. It must be I won't give him another chance to take advantage of you. Now, won't you be afraid if you can't take advantage of it? It can't be said that Qin Yigang defeated Xing Xiaofeng. Ji Yanbin is just waiting for work. It's not fair to fight now. Fart, Qinyi and Xing Xiaofang just had a few moves. What's the cost? I'm just afraid. How can you speak for him? The disciple who said something fair for Qinyi was despised by the people around him at this time. Ji Yanbin stood on the ring, staring straight at Qinyi. He's not going anywhere, just waiting here. Now that there are so many pairs of eyes watching from the audience, he wants to see how thick-skinned you Qinyi are and how long you can delay it. But Qinyi didn't take it seriously at all. After he stepped down, he started taking drugs. Guiyuandan and Guiyuandan were put into his mouth like jelly beans. Originally, as long as he had enough time, he could take 1 or 2 pills to fill up his dantian. But as a nouveau riche in elixirs, he took 7 or 8 pills in one breath. As soon as the elixir fell into his stomach, a large amount of spiritual power was produced to make up for the empty dantian. Ji Yuyi was beside him with concern. Qinyi, are you okay? Of course. Qinyi nodded, saying it was okay, and at the same time looked back at Ji Yanbin on the ring. Just scream, just scream. No matter how fierce you scream now, I will beat you as badly as you can late. Qinyi from Kuiju Peak is really timid and doesn't dare to go up. Ji Yanbin was waiting for him on the stage, and he didn't even dare to look. That's for sure. He defeated Dao Qianqi through opportunism before. Now that Ji Yanbin wants to avenge Dao Qianqi, he will definitely do his best. Where is the chance for him to speculate? However, Qinyi just defeated Xing Xiaofang and showed great strength. The kind-hearted disciple couldn't help but say again. Sure enough, as soon as he said those words, he was despised by his fellow disciples again. Is there something wrong with your brain? Who is Xing Xiaofang? It's just that he started earlier than most people. There were not many disciples in the sect at that time. Do you know how rich their cultivation resources are? They took the early dividends. If it were you, you must have as much strength as him now. How can Xing Xiaofang compare with Ji Yanbin? The onlookers were talking a lot. At the same time, the other 4 major sword fields also entered the finals. But compared to the number of onlookers at these major sword fields, the largest number were at the Tianjin sword field. Because in other sword fields, the position of the sword head is actually divided, and they can guess who it is. Like Xuanji's sword field, the split sword head must belong to Zheng Lu. He almost got the split sword head in the last session. This term's strength has improved tremendously, and the old rival from the previous term has become an elder and no longer competes with him. The Tianji sword field belongs to Shen Wanlin, a repealer. The Changsheng sword field belongs to a senior sister, Shi Shushan. In Wuliang sword field, there is also a repealer named Cheng Baihu. There is no suspense in these major sword fields, and the position of the sword head must be theirs. Only here at the Tianjin sword field, there is still a bit of suspense. Although everyone is now pointing fingers and saying that Qinyi is timid and dare not play, Qinyi defeated Xing Xiaofang in the last game and did well. It's just that people don't want to admit that he is excellent. Jealousy is a common psychology. They can accept Ji Yanbin's victory, but they cannot accept Qinyi's victory. Because Ji Yanbin is a veteran master after all, one of the 3 swordsmen of the sky-destroying sword technique, and has a good reputation. But Qin Yikai is just a new disciple who has only been in school for 2 months. Although Zhen Yanshan values him very much, his junior qualifications mean his seniority is junior. But despite being a junior, he has the strength of the gold core stage. How can other people accept this? Therefore, they would rather see Ji Yanbin win than Qinyi. I even hope that Ji Yanbin can show his power and beat Qinyi to pieces. The best thing is to have an accident, lose an arm and a leg, and become disabled from now on. A quarter of an hour passed quickly. Qinyi, who had almost recovered, began to stand up and walk to the ring. Ji Yuyi was surprised and pulled him. You don't need to be in a hurry. You can rest for a while. In her opinion, it was Qinyi who couldn't stand the cynicism around him and was forced to take the stage. Qinyi patted her hand. It's okay, finish it early and return to Kuiju Peak early. After saying that, he jumped up and stepped onto the ring again. As soon as he came on stage, the audience immediately became excited. Those who had just gossiped thought that their cynicism had an effect, and finally, excited, Qinyi to the stage. Ji Yanbin smiled slightly. You don't have to worry, you can rest for a while, or even go back to sleep. I can afford to wait. As soon as this statement came out, the onlookers laughed. Look at Ji Yanbin, what does it mean to be generous? What is a big heart? Qin Yi. No need, I'm just dealing with you, there's no need to rest that much. Ji Yanbin grabbed the iron sword. So, let's start. Qin Yi. Okay. After both of them reached an agreement, a layer of estrangement began to form in the center of the venue. With this barrier existing, it means that the official opening is really about to begin. When the barrier disappears, it's time for both parties to take action. Ji Yanbin restrained all expressions at this time and was thinking about something in his mind. He has successfully mastered the ultimate sword style of the sky-destroying sword technique, instant killing sword, under Hua Yunfang's guidance. Although the instant kill sword he used was not as powerful as Hua Yunfang also commented that if he used this sword, he would be invincible at the same level. If you are below the middle stage of Gold Core, you will either die or be disabled. If I take action and use an instant kill sword, will it have any negative effects? It turned out that he was thinking about whether the impact of the thing would be good or not. If Qin Yi is killed with this sword, will he leave a ruthless impression on the elders and sect masters? But without an instant kill sword, he had just witnessed the entire process of Qin Yi's victory over Xing Xiaofeng. Qin Yi's self-created thick sword energy is indeed very domineering. If he were to resist, he might not be able to resist it better than Xing Xiaofeng. In this case, we can only use one sword to kill instantly. Single quote. Whether it has any impact or not, let's talk about it after we win. Using a sword to kill instantly is the most trouble-free and time-saving. Use it, even if you kill him, it doesn't matter. Before the estrangement dissipated, Ji Yanbin was already accumulating strength. To kill instantly with a sword, you also need to charge up the power. When the power is fully charged, the speed reaches the limit and can deliver a fatal blow to the target in an instant. The essence of this sword is to use the inertia of speed to amplify the power to the maximum. It can be said that through the extreme speed, both power and speed reach a saturated state. During the process of accumulating power, he seemed to have done nothing, which was ordinary. And this is exactly what Hua Yunfang taught him to be calm. While remaining calm, or taking the opportunity to talk to the enemy, he can quietly accumulate strength. He has been prepared for a long time, and his power is about to be fully charged now. When the central diaphragm disappears later, he can activate it instantly. However, even though he didn't show any movement, Qin Yi on the opposite side felt a dangerous aura at this time. His ultimate detection technique has detected the murderous aura condensed on Ji Yanbin's iron sword. At the same time, there is a force in Ji Yanbin's dantian that is compressing to the limit. What do you want to do? There is no doubt that this is the opponent holding back his ultimate move. Are you going to use your killing move on me as soon as the game starts? Okay, I'll be ready too. Since the opponent attacks, he will defend. It's still the same as the last game. The first choice for defense is Athena's ultimate move and Awe of the Holy Shield. It can increase its own defense power by 10 times, and the Holy Shield can counterattack damage. Buzz. At this time, in the center of the arena, the purple isolation light film disappeared. Time is up. Ji Yanbin and Qin Yi made moves almost at the same time. Qin Yi squatted down to defend, while Ji Yanbin rushed out like a sword energy in an instant. The onlookers outside the field could hardly see clearly before they heard the sharp sound of sword energy echoing around Qin Yi. Someone with a keen eye blurted out, "Instant kill with one sword." Ji Yanbin actually understood the instant kill with one sword. The appearance of instant killing sword not only shocked the onlookers under the arena, but also made the elders in Guanlin Pavilion and the master of the famous sword sect change their colors. Because before this, among the younger generation of disciples, only Hua Yunfang had mastered this move. And now, Ji Yanbin has mastered this trick. Moreover, he used this killing move as soon as he started. Did he want Qin Yi's life? Elder Gon smiled when he saw this scene. Instant kill with one sword. Under this sword, how can the boy Qin Yi survive? Ji Yanbin, he is really ruthless in his attacks, but I appreciate him for killing well. On the arena, smoke and dust were billowing. Even though the arena was protected by formations, the power of the instant kill sword was too strong, causing the stone slabs on the arena to explode. Especially the area with Qin Yi as the center, almost all exploded, causing sand and rocks to fly. In the haze, no one could see clearly what was happening inside. Including Ji Yanbin himself, he had already landed in the northwest corner of the ring. Instant kill with one sword, instant sword draw, instant kill, instant distance. These movements, done in one go, are an instant kill with one sword. Oh, Ji Yanbin suddenly smiled. The sword energy burst out just now was so strong that even he himself could not clearly see Qin Yi's death. But amidst the billowing smoke, he heard a crisp sound, thinking that it should be the sound of the sword cutting the bones. I hit him with all my strength, he should be dead. Single quote. He just wanted to wait until the smoke and dust cleared to see the results, but suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a golden light shining in the billowing smoke. He frowned, waved his sleeves, and blew up a strong wind, forcibly blowing away the smoke and dust. When the smoke dispersed, he discovered that Qin Yi was still standing in the same place, and his posture at this moment was exactly the same as before. He was unscathed. Just when he was surprised, Qin Yi's eyes suddenly opened, and a burst of extremely compressed spiritual power in his dantian burst out from his whole body. Hua Yunfeng, who had arrived at Zontian's sword field to watch the battle at some point, seemed to realize something when he saw this, and shouted quickly, "Yan Bin, come down. Come down. What's the meaning?" Before Ji Yanbin understood what Hua Yunfeng meant, he saw Qin Yi disappear, and his whole figure turned into a sword light and flashed towards him. Ah! There was a squeaking sound, the sound of metal cutting through bones. Ji Yanbin trembled all over, and by the time he reacted, he had already seen a circle of blood on his abdomen. Yanbin, don't move. Off the field, Hua Yunfeng no longer cared about the rules and forced himself onto the field and came to Ji Yanbin's side. Don't move. If you move, you'll be dead. Ji Yanbin felt his lower body was numb and his upper body was also cold. He finally understood. He had been cut into two pieces by Qin Yi's sword. So Hua Yunfeng told him not to move. If the wound moved at this time, he would die suddenly on the spot. But if he doesn't move, he may be able to save his life by taking the holy medicine for healing. Eat it. Hua Yunfeng took out the elixir from his body and fed it to him. Ji Yanbin was frightened, his face was pale, and he didn't dare to move, so he quickly swallowed the pills. After taking the healing medicine, his wound was glowing faintly, but during this process, he still couldn't move at all. Qin Yi didn't look at him twice. He just asked in a long voice towards Guanlin Pavilion, should the victory or defeat be announced? Ji Yanbin was cut into two pieces by him, and the winner was decided. The Tianjian sword field will use him as the sword leader. However, as soon as the words came out of his mouth, Hua Yunfeng scolded, winning or losing? You only care about winning or losing. Why are you so cruel to your fellow disciples? Qin Yi frowned, you're such a moral fool, you're ruthless. Fortunately, the sword he just used was an instant kill. With his full level of comprehension, he could see through the principle of Ji Yanbin's moves in an instant. Then he followed the same example and imitated the instant killing sword, which was improved by his full level of comprehension. His instant killing sword was still more powerful than Ji Yanbin. As for the instant kill sword that Ji Yanbin launched against him, the Holy Shield of Awe perfectly protected him, and he was not injured at all. Originally, he was thinking about getting a set of 7-star ray sword by himself. But then I thought, it would be better for me to keep some more trump cards. Besides, I can fully utilize my full-level understanding and full-level imitation ability, so I can just imitate his instant kill with one sword. It's all instant killing sword. He used it on me, but you didn't come out to criticize it. On the other hand, when I used it, you said I was cruel. Qin Yi sneered. According to your point of view, I deserve to be beaten and I can only accept being beaten, but I can't fight back. If so, what the hell is Ao Tu talking about when he talks about swords? Presumptuous. How dare you talk back when Yunfeng talks about you? An elder who was maintaining order at the scene suddenly stood up. The elders with high status are all in Guanlin Pavilion, but there are also some ordinary elders on the site. When Ji Yanbin used instant kill sword on you, you were in a defensive posture. But you chose to use instant kill sword on him when he was unprepared. What are your intentions? The elder was condescending and shouted loudly as an elder. It's only natural that Qin Yi succeeds in his defense. Ji Yanbin has no defense. Is it Qin Yi who takes advantage of others' danger? Why not say Ji Yanbin is incompetent? Stop talking nonsense. Victory is victory, defeat is defeat. If you lose, don't talk nonsense. It will be embarrassing if you talk too much. Is it possible to pretend to be a weakling and accuse the winner of the rules of swordsmanship? Qin Yi snorted coldly, ignoring the accusing elders on the side. But the elder was like an aggressive rooster. As long as he got a little bit of truth, he would not let it go. When competing with fellow disciples, even if it is a swordsmanship, it is important to stick to one point. But you are better, rushing to get the point. When people take their lives, what is martial virtue? What is justice? Is this what your parents taught you? Old dog, are you looking for death by speaking disrespectfully and insulting my master? Qin Yi pointed at the elder and suddenly shouted. The rules of the Mingjian sect are strict, and it is a serious crime for those below to violate the rules and disrespect their elders. Especially in such a public place, provoking the elders as a disciple is undoubtedly provoking the sect rules. But Qin Yi is not afraid, because his elder here is only a master. If this low-level elder dared to insult his master Ji Yuyanshan in public, he could not retaliate or even take action. If you want to say that he doesn't respect his elders, how can this low-level elder respect Ji Yuyanshan, the dripping sword? Qin Yi only did this to protect his master's reputation. This can be called sincerity. What are you scolding me for? The elder was shaking with anger. Old dog, don't your ears work well? Qin Yi didn't mind scolding him again. The elder was about to go crazy on the spot, but Hua Yunfeng stopped him in time. Elder Shu, please take Ji Yanbin down first, okay? Elder Shu spoke to Hua Yunfeng. Although Hua Yunfeng was only a disciple, he was also the future leader. Therefore, Elder Shu was extremely polite to him and responded to his requests. Immediately, he went to the stage and took Ji Yanbin down. The severed part of Ji Yanbin's body was spurting blood. Even if he took the medicine, it was hard to say whether his life could be saved. Congratulations, Qin Yi, you have captured the head of the heaven-decapitating sword. After Elder Shu went down, Hua Yunfeng said lightly. Qin Yi, there's nothing to congratulate, it's just a matter of distinguishing the sword's head. Hua Yunfeng raised his eyebrows. What do you mean, you still want to take the chief sword head? Qin Yi, I have this idea. Hua Yunfeng, who taught you your instant-killing sword? He suddenly asked. The instant-kill sword is actually a self-created sword move in the Tianjian sword technique, but it was created by an ancestor of the famous sword sect. Due to the extremely high difficulty, not many people have been able to master this move for hundreds of years. In Hua Yunfeng's generation, because he was the chosen one, he combined many martial arts remnants to simplify them, reintegrated the secret of instant kill with one sword, and finally reproduced this move. Therefore, there is a difference between the old version of the instant killing sword and his new version of the instant killing sword. But just now, the instant killing sword executed by Qin Yi was obviously close to the new version of the instant killing sword. You know, Hua Yunfeng created a new version of the instant killing sword and has only taught Dao Qianqi and Ji Yanbin so far. If Qin Yi is learning the new version, who taught him? Qin Yi, it's just an instant kill with a sword, do you still need to teach it? Can't you just have the skills to do it? Seeing that he refused to say anything, Hua Yunfeng sneered. Although I don't know where you learned it from, but what I want to say is that your talent is pretty good, but don't go the wrong way. The only way to steal it is to take the wrong path. No results. After saying these words, he turned around and left. But Qin Yi felt unhappy. You came over to give me a sermon, who are you talking to? I need you to teach me how to do things. Who do you think you are? Immediately, he shouted, you're already here, so don't leave. Hua Yunfeng stopped. Oh, what do you mean, Qin Yi? Since I have obtained the divisional sword head, according to the rules, I can challenge the last general sword head, right? Hua Yunfeng slowly turned around and looked at Qin Yi almost in disbelief. So, you want to challenge me? In fact, the rules are rules. Even if there is a new split sword leader this time, no one will dare to challenge Hua Yunfeng. Hua Yunfeng just went through the motions, and then naturally got the shocking dragon sword and became the preselected candidate for the next generation of leader. But at this moment, Qin Yi, a stupid young man, actually stood up. Issued a challenge. I've seen you unhappy for a long time, so I'm going to cut you in the crotch today. Qin Yi still held the iron sword. Hua Yunfeng smiled, daring to challenge him at this time. He didn't know whether to laugh at Qin Yi's ignorance or Qin Yi's arrogance. However, since it was brought to his door by himself, in order to regain some face for his good brothers Dao Qianqi and Ji Yanbin, he had no reason to refuse. Hua Yunfeng suddenly waved from the air, and the iron sword that Ji Yanbin had just dropped flew into his hand. Okay, I accept your challenge. Guanlin Pavilion. What? This Qin Yi actually wants to challenge Hua Yunfeng. Are you crazy because of your success or failure, or something else? In my opinion, it's because of the expansion. After winning continuously and getting the sword head, I don't know what my last name is anymore. HMPH, this guy is arrogant and has no respect for his elders. Even the elders dared to talk back. In my opinion, he shouldn't be allowed to get the title of swordsman. The last words were spoken by Elder Ganlu Songan. He also insisted on this and wanted the sect leader to depose Qin Yi from the title of heaven-destroying sword head. As the peak master of Kueju Peak, Ji Yu Yanshan is also one of the core elders of the famous sword sect. In terms of status, he is higher than Elder Gan. Seeing him slandering his disciple at this moment, he naturally would not stand idly by. Elder Gan, according to what you said, is it possible that my disciple still kowtows to Shu Hong and admits his mistake? Shu Hong is the elder who maintains order at the Tianjin sword field. Elder Gan, isn't it right? The following offenders are disrespectful to their superiors. Ji Yu Yanshan is a good disciple taught by you. Ji Yu Yanshan, what does it mean to commit crimes below? Shu Hong is blind, and he is obviously blind, but he wants to confuse right and wrong. Is such an old dog worthy of maintaining order below? Then Ji Yanbin can use instant kill sword. My disciple, are you not allowed to use instant kill sword? It's Shu Hong who is still a bit shy and doesn't make a move. If he does, I won't mind taking one of his heads with my dripping sword. You. Elder Gan was so angry that he was speechless. Is this in Guanlin Pavilion, in front of the sect leader, are you, Ji Yu Yanshan, so wild and rebellious? Actually clamoring to kill the elder. Sect master, look at him, is a person like this worthy of being the master of a peak? Elder Gan complained to the sect master. Although the sect leader witnessed the whole process, although he also knew that Qin Yi was indeed on the right side, as a sect leader, he pays attention to balance and will not deliberately favor any side. Yanshan, don't be so violent. Your disciple is extremely talented, but his character still needs to be tempered. The sect master said. This may seem like nothing, but in fact, it is already leaning towards Elder Gan. The implication is that you, Ji Yu Yanshan's disciple, are indeed a bit arrogant and should restrain yourself. However, Ji Yu Yanshan felt more and more that this disciple satisfied him more and more. Just now, when he heard Qin Yi opening his mouth to challenge Hua Yunfeng, he was also surprised. Even as his father-in-law, he could hardly help but go down in person to persuade Qin Yi not to mess around. You can challenge anyone, why challenge Hua Yunfeng? He had also just heard someone say in Guanlin Pavilion that Hua Yunfeng had received a great opportunity in the bloody Forbidden Land before, and after coming out this time, his strength was already extraordinary. It is really not a wise move for Qin Yi to challenge the already unfathomable Huayan Peak with his cultivation level that has just entered the gold core stage. However, when he thought about it again, he thought that he was too cautious in thinking about the future and brotherhood, but he lost too much later and regretted it. Now, although Qin Yi, a disciple, is indeed impetuous in doing things, his competitive spirit is extremely rare. To practice Taoism is in itself an act against heaven. Since it is against heaven, then there must be a desire to win. If there is no such heart, how can one go against heaven? Defying the heavens and changing fate. Moreover, Qin Yi is so competitive, to some extent, probably just to bring glory to his master. Why should he stop such filial piety? Furthermore, he didn't see through Hua Yunfeng, but in fact, he didn't see through his beloved disciple either. He thought he knew Qin Yi well, but Qin Yi's performance just now surprised him again and again. He originally thought that Qin Yi was good at Tianji sword technique, but Qin Yi's talent and accomplishments in Tianji sword technique clearly seemed to far exceed Tianji sword technique. He is a master, but he doesn't know anything about it. What does this mean? This shows that Qin Yi still has more trump cards that he, the master, doesn't know about. Since Qin Yi dares to challenge Hua Yunfang, it shows that he has enough confidence in his heart. Since he has this confidence, why should he, the master, stop it? Instead of trying to stop him, it's better to be his strong backing and support him. Hardening. I don't think my disciple needs to sharpen anything. It's just that the sect master's disciple Hua Yunfang jumped onto the ring before the sword debate was over. This broke the rules. Only those who have no rules need to sharpen even more. Bar. Ji Yu Yanshan didn't even look back, and just said something back. Ji Yu Yanshan's disciple, even if I am the sect leader, I am not qualified to judge. Elder Gon shouted. You still say things like this. If Hua Yunfang doesn't come on stage in time, someone will be killed by your disciples. Ji Yu Yanshan. Who can blame Ji Yanbin for not being good at his studies? I don't know how high the sky is, but a small sparrow dares to compete with the sun and the moon. He deserves to fall to death. However, if everyone imitates Hua Yunfang in the future, he will run wild in the arena. Where is the law? What is the point of discussing swords? Rules are rules. The rule of the AO2 sword debate is that at the beginning of the arena, a third party must not barge in. You just accused Qin Yi of disrespecting his elders and being arrogant and rude. Now I accuse Hua Yunfang of being lawless and barging into the arena. Your sect leader, what should I say? Hua Yunfang is indeed wrong about this. The sect leader pondered for a moment, sighed, and at the same time secretly waved his hand, indicating that Elder Gon didn't need to say more. If you really suppress one and praise the other, it will be difficult to convince the public. Simply, both parties didn't care and considered it over. Sect master. It's just, Yanshan, your disciple wants to challenge Yunfang, should you go and persuade him? Elder Gon sneered and said to himself, Sect master, why do you have to persuade him? Ji Yu Yanshan just said it himself, if he loses, it means he is not good at learning and his skills are not as good as others. Challenging Hua Yunfang, Qin Yi is seeking death, why not fulfill his wish? Ji Yu Yanshan said, my apprentice, I trust him. Since he wants to challenge, I don't need to persuade him. Okay, this is what you, Ji Yu Yanshan, said yourself. Elder Gon couldn't help but said, since you don't persuade him, someone will die later. You also know Hua Yunfang's strength. If he can't hold back and let your disciples die miserably on the spot, what will happen to you afterwards? Don't regret it. Ji Yu Yanshan. What do you regret? It's just that since we are going to fight, let them fight freely. It is best not to let anyone interfere in the middle and disturb the atmosphere. Elder Gon stood up on his own initiative. Okay, I will strengthen the formation and activate the anti-interference formation. No one can come to the ring to interfere with the two of them before the outcome is decided. The reason why he did this was that he was actually guarding against Ji Yu Yanshan. Later, when Hua Yunfang beats your disciple like a dead dog, you can't stop him. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.